Chapter 383. What Cheng Kai didn't understand even in death, the white-robed priest saw it clearly. He saw with his own eyes that Jiang Ci used his extreme speed to transform his body into a series of phantoms. Then, the long sword killed Cheng Kai like a bolt of lightning. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It was too fast. He wanted to save him, but he couldn't. The white-robed priest's expression turned grim. Just now, he thought that the two of them against Jiang Ci would be in a good position. Now, even if he had the strength of a four-striped grandmaster, he wasn't confident that he could defeat Jiang Ci. Of course, the white-robed priest was confident that it would be difficult for Jiang Ci to defeat him. As for killing him, that was even more impossible. Kill him? Unless it was a four-striped grandmaster. If Jiang Ci was a four-striped grandmaster, he wouldn't have needed to ambush him. No matter what grudge you have with the Cheng brothers, I advise you to surrender. Although the 5 sacred halls view you as heretics, they will still recruit cultivators who don't practice the 5 elements Tao. The white-robed priest suddenly said. You're stalling for time? Jiang Ci interrupted him. The white-robed priest's expression froze. Don't play such tricks. Jiang Ci smiled. At the same time, he attacked again. The sword turned into a green lotus, and countless rays of sword light shot out. The dazzling light covered the night sky. What kind of move is this? The white-robed priest was shocked. He didn't dare to be careless. He formed a fist seal with both hands, and fiery red runes gathered. A pair of fiery fists smashed into Jiang Ci's countless rays of sword light. Clang clang clang, his body was indeed strong, close to a top-grade spirit artifact. The rays of sword light landed on his body, leaving only small wounds. However, those were only a few hundred rays of sword light. Behind them, tens of thousands of rays of sword light whistled, carrying the might of heaven and earth. Soon, the wounds on the white-robed priest's body accumulated, and he was heavily injured. I've never seen such an attack. Where did he come from? The white-robed priest was shocked. He was a little afraid and wanted to retreat. If the Cheng brothers died, then so be it. He didn't need to avenge them. The most fundamental reason why he had come to Black Cloud territory was because of Cheng Kai's master, Yin Tuo. Retreat. However, before he retreated, he forcefully withstood Jiang Ci's sword light and once again clenched his fists to form a powerful fist print, preparing to counterattack. After that, he turned around and left. His figure was like a blazing bolt of lightning as he sped away. Trying to run? Jiang Ci's expression did not change at all. He was already prepared for this. The Dao pattern technique brought about a tyrannical body, while the Dao fusion technique brought about a powerful Dao attack. His body vanished from the spot, and in the blink of an eye, he caught up with the white-robed priest. He struck out with his sword. I am the priest of the Fire Rune Shrine. If you kill me, you will be hunted down. The white-robed priest shouted in horror. You're about to die, yet you're still so arrogant. Jiang Ci chuckled and did not show any mercy. The sword pierced through the white-robed priest's dantian and crippled his cultivation. Then, while his primordial spirit was dissipating, he pressed a hand on his head. Soul search. In just a moment, Jiang Ci's expression became dignified. The joy of victory had completely disappeared. He flipped open the white-robed priest's left hand. A communication bead was lying quietly in the priest's palm, indicating that a message was being sent. Then, his figure flashed and he came to Cheng Kai's corpse. From Cheng Kai's palm, he also found a communication bead. At this time, Cheng Kai's communication bead also showed that someone had sent a message. Crack crack, Jiang Ci crushed the 2 communication beads. To be able to cultivate to the primordial spirit stage, no one is easy to deal with. The battle was so fierce, but these two still thought of sending the message. No wonder the white-robed priest wanted to stall for time. According to the white-robed priest's memory, Cheng Kai's master, Yin Tuo, is a 4-mark Dozong, which is a Dao fusion stage cultivator. This guy sent my appearance to Yin Tuo. Fortunately, I acted in time and did not let him continue to send it to the Fire Rune Shrine. But Dao fusion stage, even if it is early Dao fusion stage, he is not someone I can deal with now. Jiang Xi took a deep breath. Because the white-robed priest was beside him, he did not have the chance to search Cheng Kai's soul. Now, it seemed that Cheng Kai's master, Yin Tuo, definitely knew of his existence. Jiang Xi frowned again. He was not worried that his identity as an outsider would be exposed. Cheng Kai and the white-robed priest did not recognize his true identity. After I came to the Do Pattern continent, the person I came into contact with the most was that young warrior, Xiao Lin. I can just leave. Then, Xiao Lin and Xiao Yang will have to bear the brunt of Yin Tuo's anger. Jiang Xi did not doubt the methods of a Dao fusion stage cultivator. Perhaps Yin Tuo was already rushing here. Xiao Lin was a kind youth. If he was implicated and killed, he could not bear it. Whoosh, Jiang Xi disappeared into the night sky. At the same time, the Black Cloud region's warriors and Dao pattern cultivators were completely stunned. Who was that black-haired youth? He killed 2 3-striped Do spirits alone, and one of them was the white-robed priest of the Fire Pattern Temple. Such a noble person was easily killed. This person was really audacious. Xiao Lin and his grandfather, Xiao Yang, were even more incredulous. The two of them came into contact with Jiang Xi the most. They never thought that Jiang Xi would be so powerful. While the grandfather and grandson were in shock, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. Lord Jiang. Brother Jiang. The two of them exclaimed. Then, they remembered something and quickly lowered their voices. Don't worry, they can't find me, Jiang Xi said with a smile. Brother Jiang, you're leaving? Xiao Lin realized something. Jiang Xi nodded and told him his worries and plans. That's how it is. Cheng Kai's master already knows what I look like. His disciple was killed by me, so he definitely won't let it go you've come into contact with me, so I'm afraid you'll be implicated. Now, I'll give you a choice. Leave the Black Cloud region with me. Of course, it's fine if you don't leave, but it'll be difficult to keep your life. 4-striped Do Zone. No wonder the Cheng brothers were able to dominate the Black Cloud region for so many years. Xiao Yang sighed. Then, he said seriously, Lord Jiang, take Xiao Lin away. Grandfather, you're not leaving with me? Xiao Lin was anxious. Of course, he was willing to leave. Xiao Yang laughed. Silly boy, this is your opportunity. Why should I get involved? And if I leave, what will happen to our Xiao family? Xiao Lin's eyes were red. He was not a reckless youth. He liked to think silently since he was young. So, he instantly understood what his grandfather meant. The Xiao family was considered a mid-upper class family in the Black Cloud region. There were more than 20,000 people. If the two of them left, the anger of the 4-striped Do Zone would definitely be transferred to the 20,000 people of the Xiao family. Chapter 384. The grandfather and grandson were reluctant to part. Jiang Xi watched from the side and did not interrupt them. He only had some friendship with Xiao Lin and Xiao Yang, and did not know the rest of the Xiao family. Therefore, he could not bring everyone from the Xiao family away. Seeing that it was about time, he said to Xiao Yang, I will use a spiritual sense technique on you and erase the memory of our meeting today. If you are lucky, you should be able to survive. Thank you, Lord Jiang. Xiao Yang hurriedly thanked him. Jiang Xi smiled and used his spiritual sense. Xiao Lin and Xiao Yang fell into a deep sleep at the same time. A one-pattern doja was equivalent to a golden core perfected cultivator. With his cultivation, he could easily erase Xiao Yang's memory by using a spiritual sense technique. Of course, he could not erase too much. Otherwise, it could easily cause the other party's spiritual sense to collapse and they would die immediately. After doing all this, Jiang Xi grabbed the unconscious Xiao Lin and disappeared without alerting anyone in the Xiao family mansion. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Lin woke up from his deep sleep and his eyes were filled with confusion. How did I fall asleep? He had already forgotten everything that had just happened. At that moment, outside the formation barrier that enveloped the Do Tattoo continent, a supreme-grade flying ship was shuttling through the starry sky, flying toward the place where the Do Tattoo continent's fallen god. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the deck of the flying ship and beside him was the sleeping Xiao Lin. According to the white-robed priest's memories, the Do Tattoo continent also has flying spirit weapons. That Yin Tuor is a 4-pattern dozong, which is equivalent to the unification stage. The possibility of him having a flying spirit weapon is very high. However, there are large amounts of cosmic dust, star fragments, and meteorite fragments in the Do Tattoo continent's starry sky. Even if a flying spirit weapon like a flying ship has the ability to fly at light speed, it does not have enough space to accelerate to light speed. It can only fly at sublight speed. Yin Tuor City, which was ruled by Yin Tuor, was a main city of the Do Tattoo continent. The territory under its jurisdiction was huge, with the largest diameter of 1 billion kilometers. Black Cloud Territory was only one of the main cities. If Yin Tuor had a flying spirit weapon, even if he flew at sublight speed, he could reach Black Cloud Territory in an hour. Xiao Lin can pass through the formation barrier with me, but Yin Tuor can't come out. Thus, flying outside of the Do Pattern continent is the safest option. Jiang Ci made full use of this advantage. He used a wisp of his spiritual sense to control the flying boat. At the same time, he flipped his hand and took out 2 storage magic treasures. Now, I can organize my spoils of war in peace. This is Cheng Kai's. I wonder how many Dao pattern blood crystals he has. Soon, his spiritual sense was simply refined. Jiang Ci smiled, and 2 blood-red crystals appeared in his hand. It was one more than he had expected. Of course, this was not enough to surprise Jiang Ci. Next, he refined the white-robed priest's storage magic treasure and took out a brocade box. He opened the box and saw 9 Dao pattern blood crystals lying quietly inside. This was an unexpected surprise. Jiang Ci already knew about it when he searched his soul earlier. This white-robed priest was ordered by a 4-striped dozong of the Fire Rune Shrine to bring Cheng Kai to the Fire Rune Shrine to train. He would also give the 9 Dao pattern blood crystals to Cheng Kai's master, Yin Tuor. Risk and reward are proportional. Taking such a big risk, the reward is also very high. Unexpected reward. Jiang Ci put away the 11 Dao pattern blood crystals and then organized the 2 storage magic treasures. He also found a lot of valuable things and a lot of cultivation resources. Jiang Ci left for less than an hour. Black Cloud Territory, Overlord's Mansion. A young cultivator in silver armor exuded a killing intent that seemed to freeze into ice. It was Yin Tuor, the city lord of Yin Tuor City, a powerful 4-striped dozong who had just arrived. Master, the chief steward of the Overlord's mansion is here. A white-haired young man walked in from outside and bowed respectfully. Beside him, the chief steward, who was only a Dao pattern dozong, trembled as he knelt on the ground. Greetings, Lord Yin Tuor. He was terrified because the Overlord was dead. The Overlord's brother was also dead. What frightened him the most was that he just found out that the Overlord's brother was actually the disciple of this powerful cultivator. This is the murderer. I'll give you 1 day to find all the people who have been in contact with him. Yin Tuor's face was cold as he threw a portrait to the chief steward. The portrait was of Jiang Ci. Yes. The chief steward quickly retreated and went to find people. Yin Tuor looked at the night sky as the killing intent in his heart grew stronger. I'd like to see what ability you have to dare to kill my disciple. Among the many disciples, he was most optimistic about Cheng Kai. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent so much to fight for the precious opportunity to cultivate in the Fire Rune Temple for Cheng Kai. But now, Cheng Kai was killed before he could go to the Fire Rune Temple. Master, that white-robed priest is also dead. I'm afraid the Fire Rune Temple will investigate. The white-haired young man said worriedly. Chumph, let them investigate. Mentioning this, Yin Tuor was even angrier. Because the Dao pattern blood crystal that he applied for from the Fire Rune Temple was on the white-robed priest. Now, it was the murderer who took advantage of it. Jiang Ci piloted the flying ship and flew at sublight speed for 15 hours before arriving at the starry sky 10 billion kilometers away from the Black Cloud Territory. Let's stop here. He passed through the formation barrier and re-entered the Battle Rune continent. He could see a huge city on the ground below. When he arrived at the city gate, he woke Xiao Lin up. Brother Jiang? Xiao Lin was still a little confused. At that moment, He saw the name of the huge city in front of him and was stunned. Feng River Territory? He had never heard of it. This is the territory of Blue Smoke City. It should be thousands of territories away from the Black Cloud Territory. Jiang Xi smiled. Thousands of territories. Xiao Lin's eyes widened. A territory was tens of millions of kilometers. Thousands of territories, that was at least 10 billion kilometers. I came to another main city after sleeping. Xiao Lin felt a little dizzy. The distance was too far. Even his grandfather, who was a one-stripe doja, would have to spend decades to go to another main city. Brother Jiang, how long have I slept? He took a deep breath and asked. Not much. Only 15 days. That's good. That's good. It took you half a month to travel so far. Xiao Lin calmed down. If he had come so far in just one day, it would be too scary. He did not ask why Jiang Xi brought him here. He believed that Jiang Xi would not harm him. Then, the two of them entered the Feng River Territory. The martial artist forces in the Black Cloud Territory were mainly academies and families. The Feng River Territory, on the other hand, was filled with martial artist sects. Jiang Xi quickly found a sect with a decent scale but was not very famous. It was the True Wood sect. The sect master of the True Wood sect was also a two-stripe doja. He might not be enough in front of Jiang Xi, but in the Feng River Territory, he was definitely one of the strongest. When he saw Jiang Xi, he quickly said respectfully, "Greetings, sir. You're clear about what I just said through spiritual sense transmission, right?" Riverward asked. Chapter 385. On the way here, Jiang Xi had already sent a voice transmission to the True Wood sect's sect master in advance. Don't worry, sir. In the future, no one will dare to bully Xiao Lin in Fenghe territory, the True Wood sect's sect master said as he patted his chest. I owe you a favor this time. When I return from my cultivation, you will definitely be rewarded, Jiang Xi said with an indifferent expression. Thank you, sir. The True Wood sect's sect master was very excited. Not long ago, he received a voice transmission from Jiang Xi, asking him to help take care of a rank 4 warrior. What he did not expect was that Jiang Xi was actually a 3-striped fighting spirit. Usually, it was almost impossible to get a 3-striped fighting spirit to owe a favor. Now that he could get a favor from a 3-striped fighting spirit by taking care of someone, of course he was willing to do it. He would be willing to take care of 100 or even 1,000 rank 4 warriors, let alone a single one. Jiang Xi also understood this principle. Just like in the primal universe, a single sentence from a nascent soul powerhouse could make a nascent soul powerhouse follow suit. After that, he brought Xiao Lin to a side hall of the True Wood sect and waved his hand to set up a restriction that isolated spiritual senses. Xiao Lin, the place I'm going to next is very dangerous. You can cultivate in the True Wood sect for the time being. Here are some cultivation resources I've prepared for you. It's enough to support you until you become a 1-striped fighting spirit. If you work harder, it's not impossible for you to become a 2-striped fighting spirit. Of course, whether you can become a 3-striped fighting spirit will depend on your luck. Jiang Xi took out a storage ring and handed it to Xiao Lin. It was a simple statement, but it left Xiao Lin stunned. Who exactly was Big Brother Jiang? 1-striped fighting spirit? 2-striped fighting spirit? 3-striped fighting spirit? It sounded like those were nothing in Big Brother Jiang's eyes and could be easily achieved. Xiao Lin took the ring with shock and refined it. A rank 4 warrior was equivalent to an early-stage spirit vessel warrior and also had a spiritual sense. This storage ring was not of a very high grade, so he easily refined it. After seeing the items in the storage space, Xiao Lin was very excited. There were supreme-grade spirit stones, spirit items, Dao pattern secret techniques, and even a Dao pattern blood crystal. There were too many. The value of these things was 100 times, no, 1,000 times more than the wealth that the Xiao clan had accumulated over thousands of years. Remember, don't let anyone know what's inside. Jiang Xi warned. Don't worry, Big Brother Jiang. Xiao Lin nodded excitedly. Jiang Xi smiled and spoke to the sect master of the True Wood sect. At the same time, He gave the other party some magic treasures as a reward. After doing all that, he left the area. Xiao Lin was still a teenager after all, and it was his first time being so far away from home. After Jiang Xi left, he was the only one left in the True Wood sect. He was unfamiliar with the place and the people. Therefore, he was still homesick and worried about his grandfather's safety. However, he knew that following Big Brother Jiang out was the greatest opportunity he had ever encountered in his life. Therefore, he quickly pushed these emotions to the bottom of his heart and began to cultivate diligently. On the other hand, Jiang Xi did not actually leave immediately. His spirit sense had been watching Xiao Lin the whole time. After observing all that, he nodded lightly. His efforts had not been in vain. Those spirit stones and spirit items were the leftovers from the storage magic treasures of Cheng Kai and the white-robed priest. 2 3-striped fighting spirits equivalent to the primordial soul stage had accumulated a considerable amount of wealth. The Dao pattern secret technique was obtained from the soul search of the white-robed priest. It was considered top-notch. The people of the Dao pattern continent are all very talented due to the environment. With these cultivation resources, as long as Xiao Lin is diligent, he will definitely become a 2-striped fighting master in the future. As for becoming a 3-striped fighting spirit, he only gave Xiao Lin 1 Dao pattern blood crystal. It was definitely not enough. That was why he said that it would depend on Xiao Lin's luck. After that, Jiang Xi observed the situation of the True Wood sect. After confirming that there were no problems, he left for real and returned to the Dao pattern continent's boundary. The flying ship quietly floated in the starry sky. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the deck, deep in thought. In fact, he had already completed all his missions in the Dao pattern continent. 1. Obtain a Dao pattern blood crystal, reward 10,000 points. 2. Become a Dao pattern cultivator, 2-striped fighting master, reward 100,000 points. There were 2 mission objectives. The mission would be considered a success if he completed the first one. He still had 10 Dao pattern blood crystals, and his Dao pattern technique had already reached 2-striped. Because he had refined 3 Dao techniques, his body was comparable to a 3-striped fighting spirit. After thinking about it, Jiang Xi decided to stay in the Dao pattern continent for a while. The Dao pattern blood crystal is a key item for cultivating Dao pattern secret techniques. I have to get more back this time. Otherwise, I don't know if I will have the chance to come back again. Also, the Fallen God land hides a huge secret. The Yun family's Dao pattern secret technique came from there. I have to go and take a look. Let's not think about that for now. I have to raise my body to the limit first. He shook his head and took out a Dao pattern blood crystal. He then began to refine and absorb it. The fingernail-sized blood-red crystal turned into blood and merged with his body. Fuck. The next moment, Jiang Xi's expression changed. The chaotic intent this time was more than 10 times stronger than before. Roar. Kill. Kill. Roar. He could even hear all kinds of furious roars. They were frenzied and bloodthirsty. Jiang Xi's breathing became hurried, and his eyes turned red. His heart was filled with all kinds of anger and bloodthirsty emotions. The chaotic intent was affecting his consciousness. In his mind, there was an image of himself that was exactly the same as his appearance. At this moment, it was constantly emitting streaks of golden light to suppress the intense chaotic intent. But this time, the effect wasn't as obvious. Don't try to affect me. Jiang Xi clenched his teeth and tried his best to remain calm. After some time, the intense chaotic intent gradually calmed down and was finally suppressed by the golden light emitted by the image of himself. It is already so difficult to integrate the second Dao pattern blood crystal. No wonder 3-striped fighting spirits are so rare. Intent. The requirement for intent is getting higher. Jiang Xi let out a long breath. Even with his cultivation, he was actually sweating. He carefully felt the changes in his body. He could clearly feel that his affinity with heaven and earth Dao technique had increased again. Suddenly, Jiang Xi was stunned. A thought flashed across his mind. If his affinity with heaven and earth Dao technique had increased, would the efficiency of the deduction increase? It had been half a month since he refined the first Dao pattern blood crystal. He had been focusing on improving his Dao pattern art and had stopped the deduction of Dao techniques. With this thought, Jiang Xi immediately started the deduction in his mind. Use the purple firmament sword scripture, sword Dao, and the lotus sword scripture to deduce once. Soon, the deduction ended. The efficiency has increased. Jiang Xi's eyes were filled with surprise. Chapter 386. The green lotus sword Dao had a total of 9 evolution processes. 1 lotus, 4 lotuses, 100 lotuses, 1,000 lotuses. 10,000 lotuses, 1,000 lotuses, 100 lotuses, 4 lotuses, 1 lotus. A green lotus represented a change. Jiang Xi had already comprehended the first 2 evolution processes, which were the 5 transformations of 1 lotus and 4 lotuses. In addition, he had comprehended the first 21 transformations of the 3rd evolution process, which was 100 lotuses. All these added up to a total of 26 transformations. Now, he was deducing and comprehending the 27th transformation. In the previous deduction, he could clearly feel that his comprehension of the 27th transformation had deepened. If there was a definite number, it would mean that the deduction efficiency had become twice as fast as before. In addition to the Lotus Sword Codex, the deduction efficiency has increased by 10 times. When the two are multiplied, it is 20 times. Jiang Xi was extremely excited. In this way, his sword Dao deduction speed was almost the same as when he was cultivating in the ancient Dao source world. Of course, it couldn't be compared to the 100-fold deduction speed at the Green Lotus altar. If my body refines 2 Dao pattern blood crystals, it will be twice as fast. If I refine 3 crystals, it will be 3 times as fast. If I refine 4 crystals, it will be 4 times as fast. With this deduction, as long as I refine more Dao pattern blood crystals, I will be able to reach the 100-fold deduction speed sooner or later. Jiang Xi's eyes were filled with vigor. More importantly, the Dao art deduction efficiency increased by the Dao pattern blood crystals was permanent and applicable to all Dao art. It wasn't like the melody of 10,000 swords and the Lotus Sword Codex. Once he completely comprehended them, he would lose the additional effect of deducing sword Dao. At this moment, Jiang Xi understood more and more why the Dao pattern blood crystals could become the target of the Purple Heaven sect's danger grade mission. It could increase the affinity of heaven and earth Dao arts. It was too powerful. Moreover, the Dao pattern blood crystals were the key to cultivating Dao pattern art. Dao pattern arts were mystical secret arts that used Dao arts to refine the body. Jiang Xi took a deep breath and calmed his agitated emotions. First, I will raise the Dao pattern arts to the current body limit. He wasn't sure if he could refine the second Dao pattern blood crystal. The tolerance of Dao arts would increase again, and his body would be able to reach the 3 pattern level. Next, Jiang Xi let his clone refine the spiritual fruits and increase the level of Dao pattern arts. Battle pattern continent, Black Cloud territory. The atmosphere in the Lord's mansion was extremely tense. A 4-line dozong, Yin Tuor, stood in the great hall. 2 corpses lay in front of him. Both of them had died from soul-searching. If Jiang Xi was here, he would recognize him. The 2 people who had died were the middleman who had bought the house in Black Cloud territory and the original owner of the house. You found these 2 people in just 1 day? Yin Tuor stared coldly at the Grand Steward of the Overlord's residence. The chief manager knelt on the ground and kowtowed, begging for mercy. Sir, please spare my life. The culprit is an outsider. There are very few people who have come into contact with him. Please give us 1 more day. We are still searching the entire city. Trash, you're all trash. Go out and put up a notice. If anyone knows who has been in contact with the murderer, they will be rewarded with 10 billion yuan. If anyone knows anything about the murderer, they will be rewarded with 100 billion yuan. Yin Tuor still didn't punish the people from the Overlord's residence. After all, he didn't have many people here. It was impossible for him to do these things himself. Master, perhaps this person had been hiding outside the city before he made his move. He only entered the city when he made his move. The white-haired young man speculated. That's impossible. My spiritual sense found some traces in the Lord's mansion before this person attacked. Before he made his move, he had carried out a long and careful investigation of the Overlord's residence. This means that he had stayed in the city for a long time. Yin Tuor said in a deep voice. It seems that this person is very cautious. The white-haired young man sighed. If I don't find this murderer, I won't be able to relieve the hatred in my heart. Now, those four-striped dozongs from the other main cities and those old fellows from the Fire Rune Temple are laughing at me. They are laughing at me, Yin Tuor. A disciple of a four-striped dozong was killed by a nobody. Yin Tuor suddenly laughed coldly. The white-haired young man was silent. His master was a four-striped dozong who had risen to power in the last 10,000 years. He had affected the interests of many people, so there were many people who were laughing at him. The warriors from the Overlord's residence were very fast. Bounty lists were spread all over the city in a very short time. Suddenly, the entire city was boiling with excitement. As long as they found someone who had been in contact with the murderer, they would be rewarded with 10 billion yuan. If they could provide definite information about the murderer, they would be rewarded with 100 billion yuan. Look, mobilize the whole family to look for him. At least 10 billion yuan. With this money, I can exchange 10 women a day. No. I can even exchange 100 women a day. Look at your prospects. If I had that much money, I would have a chance to cultivate to a 9th level warrior and earn more money. The whole city went crazy, looking for the murderer. At the entrance of the Black Cloud Academy, Lian, who also saw the bounty list, the portrait on it and the high reward number made his breathing quicken. Late at night the day before yesterday, in the battle above the Overlord's residence, only some powerful warriors and Dao pattern cultivators could see Jiang Xi's appearance clearly. Young martial artists like them could only see a blurry figure in black armor. Now, after seeing the portrait on the list, Lian who recognized it at a glance. It was Jiang Xi. In other words, as long as he went to the Overlord's residence now and told him the information he knew, as well as the relationship between Jiang Xi and the Xiao family, he would be rewarded with at least 10 billion yuan. He clenched his fists and struggled in his heart. No, I can't go. Now we can confirm that Big Brother Jiang killed the Overlord and the General, and Xiao Lin just disappeared yesterday. Maybe Big Brother Jiang took Xiao Lin away, or maybe Big Brother Jiang was afraid of exposing himself, so he killed Xiao Lin. In Lian Hu's heart, the first possibility was the most likely. Although he did not have much contact with Jiang Xi, he knew that Jiang Xi did not have to kill people to silence them. Otherwise, Jiang Xi could have gotten rid of them back in the 100,000 mountains. Moreover, the Cheng brothers were people who deserved to be killed. If that's the case, Xiao Lin got a great opportunity this time. Grandpa Xiao helped me before. I can't betray them. I believe that even without this reward, I can become strong with my own talent. Lian who suppressed the desire in his heart. However, not everyone had his willpower. In the four-man warrior team that met Jiang Xi back then, besides Lian Hu and Xiao Lin, there were two other young warriors from the Black Cloud Academy. Lian Hu also considered this point and hurriedly went to find the two of them. However, he pounced on empty air. Not good. Lian Hu's expression changed drastically, and he rushed to the Xiao family's residence. The Black Cloud territory was very big. Even though Lian Hu was a rank 5 warrior, it took him half an hour to reach the Xiao family's residence. However, before he reached the entrance of the Xiao family's residence, he saw from afar. A burly old man was forcefully taken away by the Overlord's residence's people. The person in the lead was a white-haired youth. The ones leading the way were two young martial artists. Chapter 387. Grandpa Xiao is a one-striped doja, but he was powerless in front of that white-haired youth. Fang Yi, Shi Xiong, those two bastards. Lian whose heart was filled with anger. He was one step too late. The two of them probably don't know much. Xiao Lin once told me that he and Grandpa Xiao went to visit Brother Jiang. But that visit was very secretive and not many people know about it. If Xiao Lin didn't tell me, it would have been difficult for me to know. So, the possibility of Grandpa Xiao and Brother Jiang being involved is very small. Lian, who could only comfort himself like this. Damn it. Lian, who gritted his teeth and tried his best not to reveal his anger. Even though he kept comforting himself, he knew that it was very, very difficult for someone who was captured by the Lord's mansion to come out alive. What Lian who did not notice was that in the bustling crowd, there was an ordinary-looking girl who was also watching everything. It was Yun Xiong. She looked at the people from the Lord's mansion and the two young warriors with a murderous look in her eyes. Xiao Yang was brought to the Lord's mansion and he was terrified. That white-haired youth just now had only used one move to subdue him. Sir, I really don't know the specific identity of that Jiang Ci. I only went to see him once with my grandson. Oh right, my grandson just happened to go missing that day. It's very likely that he was also killed by this person. Xiao Yang tried his best to explain. The white-haired youth glanced at Yin Tuo. Master, according to the statements of those two young warriors, this person's grandson, Xiao Lin, had the most contact with the murderer, Jiang Ci. And Xiao Lin did indeed go missing the night before. Do you want to search Xiao Yang's soul now? It seems that this is a key witness. Use hypnosis, Yin Tuo said softly. A soul search was fatal, but hypnosis would only hurt the mind, but not the life. The white-haired youth, who was a three-striped doe spirit, had no difficulty dealing with Xiao Yang, who was only a one-striped doja. Xiao Yang, who was still trying to explain, suddenly lost his spirit under the hypnosis. Do you know Jiang Ci? Yes. Do you know Jiang Ci's background? I'm not sure. When was the last time you saw Jiang Ci? Late at night the day before yesterday. The white-haired young man was overjoyed, and then he quickly asked, where did you see him? Above the Lord's mansion. The smile on the white-haired youth's face disappeared. Many powerful martial artists and Dao pattern cultivators had witnessed the battle in the sky above the Lord's mansion late at night 2 days ago. In other words, Xiao Yang knew very little. The white-haired youth said, Master, it seems that the key lies with that young man, Xiao Lin. There are two possibilities. Jiang Ci took Xiao Lin away, or he chose to silence Xiao Lin in order not to expose himself. Yin Tuo pondered and said, the first possibility is more likely. If it was just to silence people, with this person's strength, everyone who has seen him in the past few days would have been silenced. Keep Xiao Yang. I have a feeling that Jiang Ci or Xiao Lin will come back for him one day. Killing people was not the goal, but finding Jiang Ci, the murderer, was the ultimate goal. Time flew by and half a month passed quickly. A flying ship was quietly hovering in the starry sky of the Dou Pattern continent. Jiang Ci was sitting cross-legged on the deck of the flying ship, not moving at all. Cultivating was also a form of solitude. Sitting for half a month like him was considered rare. For many cultivators with high cultivation bases, sitting for hundreds or even thousands of years was nothing out of the ordinary. Suddenly, 3 layers of 3-colored Dao patterns appeared on Jiang Ci's body. They kept shrinking and spiraling up and down, and finally merged into his body. His body's realm began to undergo a drastic change, and it rapidly strengthened. After a while, the change ended. Jiang Ci opened his eyes, full of surprise. His Dao pattern technique had broken through. His body's realm had truly reached the level of a 3-striped doling spirit. He carefully felt the changes in his body. Yes, my body's strength has surpassed a high-grade spirit weapon, but it's still far from a supreme-grade spirit weapon. Jiang Ci had already expected this. There was a qualitative change from a high-grade spirit weapon to a supreme-grade spirit weapon. It was very difficult to cross this boundary. He checked the changes on his experience panel. Dao pattern technique, 3 stripes, 13 billion, it could be seen from the experience points of a 3-striped doling spirit. 3 billion experience points. This was currently the highest experience point on the entire panel. A 3-striped Dao pattern is the Dao of heaven and earth. If I want to reach the level of a 4-striped doling grandmaster, I need a Dao technique at the level of a great Dao. So now, I can at most raise my Dao pattern technique to the limit of 3 stripes. However, since I've refined 3 types of Dao of heaven and earth at the same time, my body's strength might reach the level of a supreme-grade spirit weapon at the 3-striped level. The last point was Jiang Ci's guess. Whether his body could be comparable to a supreme-grade spirit weapon before the 4-striped level was still unknown. Immediately after, Jiang Ci continued to raise his Dao pattern technique. It was worth mentioning that the strength of his original body and clone increased at the same time. Therefore, the clone's efficiency of refining spiritual fruits had greatly increased. In just 10 days, he had reached the limit of his current Dao technique. Dao pattern technique, 3 stripes, 300 billion, 3 billion. If he continued to raise it, more wounds and cracks would appear on his body, and it would cause his body to collapse. My body's strength has increased a little. As expected, the further I go, the harder it is to raise it. Jiang Ci shook his head and took out another Dao pattern blood crystal. Let's refine another one to raise the limit of my body's Dao technique. Let's see how much my experience in Dao pattern technique can increase. Immediately after, he used his spiritual sense and spirit power to refine the Dao pattern blood crystal. When the Dao pattern blood crystal turned into blood and fused into his body, an extremely strong chaotic will appeared once again. Roar. Kill. Kill. Woo. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Damn, it's happening again. Jiang Ci suddenly clenched his fists. All the muscles in his body bulged, and his veins were like small snakes that kept surging. All kinds of angry, bloodthirsty, and crazy roars filled his mind. They were clearer and more violent than the last time. Hang in there. Hang in there. Jiang Ci felt that his consciousness was like a small boat in the sea that was constantly being battered by the chaotic intent. It could capsize at any time. Roar. Kill. Boom. It was as if there was a violent explosion in his mind. Jiang Ci's consciousness was about to collapse. Suddenly, the blood formed by the Dao pattern blood crystal instantly flowed back from his body. It quickly gathered in his palm and turned into a blood-red crystal the size of a fingernail. Failed. Jiang Ci was sweating profusely as he panted heavily. My willpower is still not strong enough. After all, the strength of my spiritual sense is only at the complete nascent soul stage, which is equivalent to a 2-striped dosha. He could reach the level of a 3-striped do spirit with his spiritual sense at the complete nascent soul stage. Even on the do tattoo continent, this was a rare occurrence. It was enough to prove his talent and willpower. Chapter 388. The strength of one's spiritual sense was related to one's cultivation, but willpower was related to one's state of mind. This meant that Jiang Ci's heart was very strong. Correspondingly, his willpower was also strong enough. It's not enough. I need to hone my willpower. It seems that I have to go to the fallen godland. However, before that, I need to get more Dao pattern blood crystals. Thinking of this, Jiang Ci smiled. Although he had not reached the limit of a 3-striped fighting spirit, his physical realm was stronger than most 3-striped fighting spirits. Before his breakthrough, he could kill 2 3-striped fighting spirits when he used his Dao techniques and went all out. Moreover, the white-robed priest was a top powerhouse among 3-striped fighting spirits, equivalent to a perfected primordial soul. Now, if he were to fight with Cheng Kai and the white-robed priest, he believed that he would have an easier time. Therefore, he had always had a plan. The battle pattern continent has hundreds of millions of territories and millions of main cities. These lords and castellans have Dao pattern blood crystals bestowed by the 5 temples. The castellans are all 4-striped Do zones. I definitely can't provoke them, but most of the lords are 2-striped Do masters and 3-striped fighting spirits. Just like killing the lords and generals of the Black Cloud territory, I can hunt the lords of the various territories. Even in 10,000 territories, killing one would at least give me tens of thousands of Dao pattern blood crystals. Moreover, there are often expeditions, wars, and vendettas between the various territories and main cities. The death rate of Dao pattern cultivators is not low. The death of one lord in 10,000 territories is insignificant and won't attract attention. Jiang Ci sorted out the train of thought that he had previously thought of. This was a big business that could be done. The reason why he generously gave Xiao Lin a Dao pattern blood crystal was also because of this. He had this plan long ago. Jingshan City, Moon Stallion Territory. Lord Gong Sui was the #1 expert in Moon Stallion Territory, a famous three-striped fighting spirit. This person had ruled Moon Stallion territory for 4,000 years. Under his rule, the people, warriors, and Dao pattern cultivators of Moon Stallion territory were full of complaints and suffering. Gong Sui was fine as he cultivated in seclusion all year round. The main reason was that the members of the Gong family relied on Gong Sui's existence to commit all kinds of crimes in Moon Stallion territory. On this day, a great battle broke out in the Yufang territory's mansion. Many martial artists and Dao pattern cultivators realized that Overlord Gong Hun, who had been in seclusion for more than 10 years, was like a demon god. Exuding a powerful fiery red aura, it was fighting with a black shadow. The most shocking thing was that the speed of the black shadow was too fast. Moreover, its body was much stronger than the three-striped Douling Gong Sui. The battle lasted for less than 10 breaths before the black shadow turned into 10,000 phantoms. 10,000 sword lights shot out at the same time, killing Gong Gui in the sky above the Lord's mansion. After that, the shadow disappeared without a trace. But at this moment, no one cared who the black shadow was. Because the Thane was dead. The Gong family's backing was gone. Soon, the martial artists and Dao pattern cultivators who had been bullied gathered at the Lord's mansion. They uprooted the Gong family, which had been evil for many years. Not a single one of the tens of thousands of clansmen was left alive. Of course, what happened after that had nothing to do with Jiang Ci. After killing Lord Gong Sui, he returned to the outside of the barrier. 3 Dao pattern blood crystals. Not bad, not bad. A good start. Jiang Ci tidied up the storage Dharma treasures that he had just obtained. At the same time, the flying ship shuttled to the next location at sublight speed. After traveling for an hour, they landed at a place that was hundreds of territories away from the Moon Shadow territory. Then, they would find their target, hunt, steal their treasures, and leave, including the time spent on reconnaissance. With Jiang Ci's efficiency, he could hunt at least 10 times a day and obtain more than 10 Dao pattern blood crystals. There was no good or evil in this kind of hunting. It was just the law of the jungle. It was pure plunder. In the starry sky of the Dao pattern continent, the Six Sage Palace, which was comparable to the size of a planet, had existed for countless eras. In one of the side halls of the Six Sage Palace, there were countless three-dimensional images. Close to 100 Dao integration cultivators were monitoring the situation in the Dao pattern continent in real time. Junior brother Jiang Ci, who has just entered the third heaven, has been acting a little strange recently. Everywhere in the Dao pattern continent, a Dao integration expert was puzzled. The frequency is a little high. More than 10 times a day. Junior brother Jiang Ci is also bold. This is the first time he has accepted a cultivation mission, and he dares to come to the dangerous Dao pattern continent. Alright, be serious. There are a few immortal Dao experts above who think highly of junior brother Jiang Ci. If anyone follows junior brother Jiang Ci and rushes up, kill them immediately. Under normal circumstances, the cultivators of the Dao pattern continent would not be able to pass through the all-encompassing array boundary. However, if someone was fast enough, they would have a chance to follow Jiang Ci out the moment he passed through the boundary. This was an extremely small probability, but it was not impossible. Then, Jiang Ci's frequency in the Dao pattern continent continued for 3 years. He seemed to be in a killing frenzy and could not stop. After all, the profits were too high. Although he would return empty-handed sometimes, he would basically reap some rewards. Even without Dao pattern blood crystals, 2-striped Dao Shi and 3-striped Dao spirit cultivators had accumulated a considerable amount of wealth. These 2 levels were equivalent to the nascent soul stage and the primordial soul stage. No matter where they went, they would not be poor. In addition, it was the same as Jiang Ci's plan. In these 3 years, the high-level experts of the Dao pattern continent did not discover that he had been crazily hunting the lords of various places. After all, the Dao pattern continent was too big. The largest diameter was 100 million light-years. Even if one flew at one time the speed of light, it would still take 100 million years to fly from one end to the other. Only when a cultivator reached the Dao immortal realm or above would they have an endless lifespan. Therefore, Even a ninth tribulation transcender would not be able to cross the Do pattern continent within their limited lifespan. It was also useless to have a high-grade flying spirit artifact. This was because there was a large amount of cosmic dust, star fragments, and meteorite fragments in the starry sky around the Do pattern continent. There was not enough space to accelerate to the speed of light. The huge territory, coupled with the inconvenience of transportation, caused the flow of information not to be very smooth. Therefore, the possibility of Jiang Xi's actions being discovered by the high-level experts of the Do pattern continent was very small. Of course, as the saying went, if one walked by the river, how could one's shoes not get wet? On this day, in the Thousand Gilt territory, which was about 2 trillion kilometers away from the Black Cloud territory, after a careful investigation, Jiang Xi was ready to make his move. The lord of the Thousand Gilt territory was a two-striped dosha. He had cultivated for less than 1,000 years and was very talented. The possibility of him having Dao pattern blood crystals was very high. Taking advantage of the night, Jiang Xi sneaked into the lord's mansion and prepared to kill him in one blow. Killing a two-striped dosha was very easy for him. Boom! However, just as he swung his sword, a burly man with a faint golden light rushed out from under the lord's mansion. He emitted a terrifying aura. Scram! His leg carried a golden light, and with the force of a thunderbolt, he sent riverward flying. Chapter 389. Puff, Jiang Xi spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew out uncontrollably, crashing into countless buildings in the Thousand Gilt territory. Even though his body's toughness surpassed that of a high-grade spiritual weapon, cracks began to appear on his body, which was on the verge of collapsing. This kick was too powerful. Damn it, a four-striped dozong. Run. A four-striped dozong was a Dao integration stage existence. Jiang Xi was shocked. He did not have time to regain control of his body. The flying ship appeared instantly. Then, he steered the flying ship and flew into the sky. How dare you assassinate my son? How audacious. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I will kill you, you bastard. A flying spiritual weapon appeared under the feet of the golden-haired man, who was emitting a terrifying aura. He chased after Jiang Xi. A top-grade flying spiritual weapon. What a fast speed. The golden-haired man's eyes shone with a blazing golden light. However, compared to Riverward, his speed was only faster and not slower. He was a four-striped dozong, and his body was comparable to a top-grade spiritual weapon. Even though he was using a high-grade flying spiritual weapon, his flying speed was still faster than Jiang Xi's. You are seeking death by running to the sky. The golden-haired man sneered. When the cultivators of the Do Tattoo continent reached a certain level, they would be informed by the temple there was a heaven and earth boundary in the sky that protected the Do Tattoo continent. Even a four-striped dozong could not break it. He was a four-striped dozong. Of course, he knew that this was a lie. That heaven and earth boundary was left behind by the extraterritorial demon race countless years ago, trapping them in this world. As long as one was a cultivator of the Do Tattoo continent, they would not be able to pass through the heaven and earth boundary. As the saying went, there was no way to heaven and no door to hell. In the eyes of the golden-haired man, this assassin was already a dead man. The distance between the ground and the sky was not too far compared to the vast territory of the Do Tattoo continent. In just a moment, the two of them approached the invisible heaven and earth boundary. You can't escape. A cold light flashed in the golden-haired man's eyes. The golden light around his body condensed into a long spear, which he threw out. The golden long spear had a powerful aura. It cut through the air and pierced toward the flying ship in front of them. However, the next moment, the golden-haired man was stunned. The flying boat that the assassin was piloting had actually passed through the heaven and earth boundary. Extraterritorial devil clan. The golden-skinned man was shocked. Only the extraterritorial devil race could disregard the existence of the barrier. The golden-haired man stood in the thick fog and looked up at the invisible sky, falling into silence. The extraterritorial devil race has arrived. This matter is of great importance. We must inform the Golden Vein Temple. The Thousand Gilt region was under the jurisdiction of the Golden Vein Temple. The Golden Vein Temple had to be notified first. Jiang Ci steered the flying boat through the array barrier of the battle pattern continent. He didn't stop there either. He shuttled through the starry sky at sublight speed and quickly left this place. At the same time, he sat cross-legged and circulated his spiritual energy to suppress his injuries. One healing spiritual pill after another was refined by him. It took an entire day for his body to fully recover. The hideous and terrifying cracks on his body disappeared without a trace. A 2-line do shi at the Yuanying stage actually has the protection of a 4-line dozong at the unification stage. I am really lucky. Moreover, this person cultivates a metal-type Dao art. After cultivating a Dao pattern, his body is much stronger than an expert of the same level. That kick almost killed me. Jiang Ci bitterly smiled and shook his head. This was the result of being approached by a high-level Dao pattern cultivator. If not for the fact that he also cultivated Dao pattern techniques and that his body was stronger than a high-grade spirit artifact, he would have been kicked to death just now. However, this kick also woke Jiang Ci up. If you hunt birds every day, you will eventually be pecked in the eye. This time, I was lucky. If I encounter a 5-line Do King at the Tribulation Transcendent stage next time. Moreover, that golden-haired man has already discovered that I came from beyond the heavens. He will definitely report this matter to the 5 temples. If I want to hunt like this in the future, it will be much more difficult. Jiang Ci shook his head and woke up from his crazy hunting state. It was time to stop. 3 years of sleepless hunting. Haha, the harvest is already more than enough. River Word laughed heartily. In his storage ring, the Dao pattern blood crystals had already piled up into a small mountain. Counting carefully, there were a total of 14,586 of them. I'm afraid that none of the Purple Heaven sect disciples who came to the battle pattern continent could obtain so many. There were definitely people who wanted to do this kind of crazy hunting method to obtain Dao pattern blood crystals. However, there were very few people who had the strength of Jiang Ci at the nascent soul stage. First of all, it was extremely rare for a nascent soul stage cultivator to cultivate 3 Daos of heaven and earth at the same time. Secondly, although the difficulty of obtaining Dao pattern techniques was not high, the difficulty of cultivating them was very high. Using 3 Daos of heaven and earth to cultivate Dao pattern techniques was even more difficult. Moreover, obtaining the Yun family's Dao pattern secret technique required too much luck and could only be chanced upon by luck. Therefore, there were very few people who had just become a 3-line Do spirit and had a body that surpassed a high-grade spirit artifact. Finally, only Jiang Ci had the experience panel. This was the key. It's about time to go to the Fallen God's land. This place is about 1 trillion kilometers away from the Fallen God's land. Flying at sublight speed will take about 2 months. I can make use of this time to rest and reorganize. Jiang Ci adjusted the flying ship's direction and flew towards the Fallen God's land. In the following time, he hurried along the way and cultivated. During this time, he tried to refine the 3rd Dao pattern blood crystal. Unfortunately, he still failed. His willpower still could not withstand the impact of the chaotic willpower. Jiang Ci did not force it. Besides, he also took the time to inform Jiang Dudu that he was safe. Because he had been in the robbing business for the past 3 years, he had less contact with Jiang Dudu. Not only Jiang Dudu, but he also contacted Shen Tian, Li Baibai, and his master, the Wine Sword Immortal, who was far away in the ancient Dao Source world. Time flew by. 2 months passed. The flying ship arrived above the Fallen God's land on the battle pattern continent. As soon as he arrived, Jiang Ci's expression turned serious. This was because the thick fog in this area had a strange blood-red color and was flowing slowly. Even though they were separated by an array formation barrier, they could vaguely feel the vexing and irritating murderous aura. How strong is the murderous aura below? Jiang Ci was on high alert. He put away the flying ship and disappeared into the thick blood-red fog. In the starry sky, in the Six Worthies Palace, which was comparable to a planet. In the side hall in charge of real-time monitoring of the battle pattern continent. Many Dao integration experts saw Jiang Ci enter the blood-red fog in the Fallen God's land through one of the images. I knew that this strange genius junior brother would not be able to resist the urge to go to the fallen god's land to take a look. A Tao integration expert smiled knowingly. The fallen god's land is extremely mysterious. According to the records of the Six Worthies Palace, countless epochs ago, the fallen god's land has conquered the fallen god's land. In order to conquer the battle pattern continent, many immortal Tao experts of the Purple Heaven sect have died there. It is the most dangerous place on the battle pattern continent. I wish him good luck. Ever since the battle pattern continent was conquered, the Three Gates and Six Sects have had many outstanding disciples. They entered the fallen god's land out of curiosity, but they all lost their lives in the end. Another person sighed. The others nodded in agreement. They were in charge of monitoring the battle pattern continent, so they naturally knew all kinds of secrets. Of course, if he is lucky and can gain something from it, then it will be a great benefit. The group of Tao integration experts knew that the fallen god's land was very dangerous, but they did not stop Jiang Ci. Everyone's path was chosen by themselves, and they wouldn't interfere. Their mission was to eliminate the battle pattern continent cultivators who had escaped the array formation barrier. Although the probability was very small, it was not impossible. Chapter 390. After passing through the formation barrier, Jiang Ci carefully maintained a steady speed as he descended. The further down he went, the thicker the blood mist became, and the more violent it became. After descending for 100,000 kilometers, the blood mist turned into a sea of blood, setting off huge waves. That dense baleful aura was constantly affecting one's state of mind. Although the intensity of the baneful aura in this area can't be compared to the chaotic intent of the Tao pattern blood crystal, it is still very powerful. However, even if a golden core stage cultivator were to come here, they would also be affected by the baleful aura here and their minds would be in chaos. It descended another 200,000 kilometers. Finally, they saw the land of the fallen gods. At the edge of a boundless continent, there were countless fragments of continents. It was as if he had been attacked by something that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. The thick blood-colored mist was swirling and rolling in this area. During the 3 years of hunting, Jiang Ci had collected a lot of information about the land of the fallen gods through the dead lords. The land of the fallen gods had a radius of 10 million kilometers. Half of it was located at the northern border of the battle pattern continent, while the other half was made up of countless fragments of land in the void. It was like a floating island. It feels like these fragments were shattered by a single blow. If that's the case, how powerful is the person who did it? Jiang Ci was secretly astonished. Let's find a place to land first and scout the situation. He found a fragment of land with an area of over 1 million square kilometers. The terrain here was very rough. There were also mountains and rivers, and it exuded an ancient aura. As soon as Jiang Ci's feet touched the ground, he could feel the boundless murderous aura that filled the world. It swarmed in from all directions and passed through his body. All sorts of chaotic wills appeared in his mind, constantly attacking his consciousness. This intensity has already surpassed the chaotic willpower that refined the first Tao pattern blood crystal. But to me, if I want to temper my will, this intensity is far from enough. The image in Jiang Ci's mind emitted wisps of golden light, easily suppressing these chaotic wills. I have to find a place with even denser baleful aura to temper my willpower. Once my willpower improves, I will fuse with the next Tao pattern blood crystal. This was his next cultivation goal. Soon after, he began to search the fragment, crossing mountains and rivers. Half a day later, Jiang Ci paused and his eyes lit up. In a valley with a diameter of over 100 kilometers, the thick blood-red fog seemed to be condensing into a liquid state. Even the rolling and flowing speed had slowed down. The baleful aura here is very dense. Jiang Ci's footsteps were light as he crossed the void and arrived at the valley. Then, he found a comfortable position and sat down cross-legged. Open up my mind and let the chaotic will of the baleful aura attack my consciousness. Suddenly, boundless murderous aura surged into his body and into his mind. The image of visualizing self emitted wisps of golden spiritual light to fight against these chaotic wills. However, It was clear that the image of viewing oneself was at a disadvantage. It's good that he's weak. Only then will he be able to hone himself. Jiang Xi's attention was highly focused, but he still could not feel the increase in the strength of his consciousness. The effect was not ideal. Try holding on for a while. Speaking of which, this is an excellent place to cultivate the path of Bloodfiend. If Blood Boy were to come here, he would probably be overjoyed. Just as he was thinking this, a cold light suddenly came from behind him. Making a sneak attack in front of me? Jiang Xi sneered. Whoosh, the sword light flickered and blocked the cold light. At the same time, another sword was swung out. The powerful force directly forced the opponent to retreat. Two-striped dosha? Jiang Xi saw the person who attacked him. It was a long-haired young man. The two-striped dosha was at the nascent soul stage, and the strength of his spiritual sense was comparable to his. It was difficult for him to discover the other party when he deliberately hid, so he allowed the other party to get close. What a fast reaction, what a fast sword. The long-haired young man was shocked. In the face of Jiang Xi's counterattack, he did not take it and turned to leave. He seemed to specialize in assassination. However, how could Jiang Xi let him go? He suddenly dispersed his aura and chased after him three-striped Do Ling. The long-haired young man's expression changed drastically. The two of them, one in front and one behind, chased to the other side of the valley. Boom! The shadow of a staff, like a long dragon, smashed toward Jiang Xi with incomparable strength. There's another one. Jiang Xi was expressionless. His body swayed, turning into countless wind phantoms, and he directly raised his sword. Clang! 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 The long staff attack was sent flying and landed on a mountain nearby. The mountain, which was thousands of meters tall, collapsed with a loud bang. What a powerful attack! What grade of sword is he using? My long staff was refined by a five-striped Do King, but it was easily sent flying. The other attacker, who was hiding in the dark, showed an expression of disbelief. Just now, he was very confident that even a three-striped Do Ling would not be able to easily take that staff attack. After being attacked by two people in a row, Jiang Xi was also angry. In the past 3 years, he had been the one to assassinate others. Since when did others have the chance to sneak attack him? Whoosh! His speed reached the highest, and in an instant, he caught up with the long-haired young man who was running for his life. The sword carried a powerful force as it pierced out. Spare me, I am from the Golden Vein Temple. My master is Xiongxiu Dozong. The long-haired young man begged for mercy. He realized that his speed could not block this sword. However, Jiang Xi did not listen to him. The sword was unstoppable as it pierced into his opponent's body. A powerful force erupted. The long-haired young man, who was a two-striped dosha, exploded in the air. He could not be more dead. Whoosh! 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 Before it stopped, 3 arrows that were suffused with golden light shot out from another direction. Not simple. Jiang Xi treated it seriously. A Dao technique attack instantly appeared. The extremely explosive Dao of Li fire covered the sword. Suddenly, dark red sword shadows shot out. Puff! 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 The 3 arrows were destroyed, but the remaining sword shadows continued to attack in the direction of the arrows. Not good, retreat quickly. In the dark, a two-striped dosha with thick arms retreated with a horrified expression. The other man who used the staff had already retreated without needing his reminder. A flying spirit tool appeared under each of their feet, and they directly rushed out of the fragment. Jiang Xi only glanced at them coldly. He did not chase after them and directly left this place. This was because the long-haired young man had said that he was from the Golden Vein Shrine and his master was some Xiongxiu Dozong. Perhaps the other party had a 4-striped Dozong nearby. A 4-striped Dozong was a Dao integration expert. Previously, he had been kicked half to death by a 4-striped Dozong. Now, he did not dare to provoke such an expert. Although these 3 people are only 2-striped dosha, their strength has reached the 3-striped Doling level. This is equivalent to the nascent soul stage with the fighting strength of the primordial soul stage. Looks like I cannot underestimate the young geniuses of the Do Tattoo continent. With their talent, even if they participate in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, they will have a chance to get into the top 10,000. I cannot stay in the periphery. It is easy to encounter cultivators of the Do Tattoo continent here. I have to go to the center of the fallen godland. Moreover, the baleful aura there is thicker. The effect of tempering one's willpower is better. Jiang Xi's figure flickered as he quickly headed to the center of the fallen godland. When the other 2 Golden Vein Shrine cultivators who had escaped realized that Jiang Xi did not chase after them, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This is too scary. When did such a 3-striped Do Ling appear in the fallen godland? He is almost on par with a 4-striped Do Zong. Forget it. Let's continue to find a place to train. If we don't cultivate to the 3-striped Do Ling level, we will fail the training. As for the companion who had died, they did not care. They were all geniuses who had been chosen by the Golden Vein Shrine. Naturally, they knew the law of the jungle. Chapter 391. Jiang Xi's goal was to explore the fallen godland, so he kept checking along the way and didn't immediately rush into the depths of the fallen godland. During this process, he saw many shocking spectacles. For example, there were huge footprints thousands of miles long, broken ancient weapons with powerful auras, and even some creepy bones. To be cautious, he didn't approach these areas for fear of provoking some taboo. Jiang Xi guessed, the battlefield of the gods. Those who fought here weren't just tribulation immortals, right? After approaching the depths of the fallen godland, there were indeed fewer cultivators here. Where there were people, it was easy to have conflicts. In particular, this place was filled with endless killing intent. Everyone was very irritable, and the possibility of conflict was higher. Therefore, he chose to come to a place with fewer people. I'm here to temper my will, not to fight. Jiang Xi's goal was clear. 10 days later, he arrived at a fragment with a radius of 100,000 kilometers. This was also the largest fragment among the many fragments, and it was located in the core area of the fallen godland. He continued to search on this fragment and found many places with dense killing intent. Some even condensed into blood-colored lakes. This was the best place to temper one's will. Unfortunately, these places had long been occupied. Before he got close, he could feel the aura of powerhouses emitting from them. Without accurate information, Jiang Xi couldn't take action and snatch other people's territory. Therefore, he could only look for other places without people. This place was so big, so he could definitely find a suitable place to cultivate. Another 10 days later, Jiang Xi stood on a mountain 1 million meters high. Seeing the scene below, his breathing stagnated. He saw a huge valley with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers, surrounded by mountains of more than 1 million meters high. The killing intent here was so dense that it seemed like it was about to condense into a sea. It was so dense that it had even stopped flowing. The chaotic wills contained in the baleful aura roared in unwillingness, echoing in the world. He could confirm that this was the place with the highest concentration of killing intent he had encountered so far. The only problem was that the high concentration of killing intent suppressed his spiritual sense originally. He could explore as far as 1,000 kilometers, but now he could only explore less than 100 kilometers. This is it. Jiang Xi made a decision. Of course, such a good place to train one's willpower was bound to have many hidden cultivators. The reason for choosing this place was very simple. This was because his spiritual sense had discovered that there were quite a few people cultivating in seclusion within a radius of 100 kilometers. They were all 2-striped Do Shus and 3-striped Do Lings. There were no 4-striped Do Zongs. In other words, this was a public training ground, not private. There's not enough killing intent here. Jiang Xi went down, wanting to go to a place where the baleful aura was thicker. His figure quickly disappeared into the murderous aura that was about to condense into a sea. The deeper he went, the thicker the baleful aura became. The chaotic will became more and more intense, constantly attacking his consciousness. I can still take it. Keep going. Continue. 10,000 meters, 20,000 meters, 100,000 meters. 200,000 meters. Along the way, many cultivators noticed Jiang Xi, but no one made a move. Everyone was very clear that those who dared to come here to cultivate were not easy to deal with. Without absolute certainty, no one was willing to take the initiative to provoke others. In addition, they were more like spectators. This person is so unscrupulous. He's really courting death. The spiritual sense strength of a three-striped doeling can only go down to 300,000 meters. Below 300,000 meters, the chaotic will there will directly disperse his consciousness, turning him into a mindless lunatic. Soon, when they saw that Jiang Ci had really entered the area below 300,000 meters, they no longer paid attention. In their opinion, this three-striped doeling who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth was finished. Below 300,000 meters, the chaotic will here had a very strong impact on one's consciousness. Jiang Ci also felt a very strong pressure. The image in his mind constantly emitted golden spiritual sense light to fight against the chaotic will in the surrounding killing intent. However, the golden spiritual sense light was suppressed and it was very difficult to spread out. This was also the reason why the detection range of his spiritual sense was reduced. I can still go down further. Jiang Ci gritted his teeth. His eyes were red with a murderous glint. At this area, there were no other cultivators. He was the only one. 400,000 meters. Kill. Kill them all. Roar. I would rather die than be a slave. Kill. All kinds of chaotic wills filled Jiang Ci's mind. Kill. Jiang Ci could not help but roar angrily. He was affected. Not good. The image in his mind emitted an even stronger golden spiritual sense light, awakening him from his bloodthirsty and crazy state. I can't go any further. It's at this position. Riverward confirmed that this was the limit of what his spiritual sense and consciousness could bear at present. The surrounding killing intent could have the best tempering effect on his will. He panted heavily, and a bloody light appeared in his eyes. He tried hard to maintain his calmness. Then, he let go of the mental defense a little and took the initiative to guide the chaotic will to attack his consciousness. He did not dare to let go too much. If the chaotic will was too strong, it would cause his consciousness to collapse. That would be a tragedy. Spiritual sense was the soldier, consciousness was the general, and willpower was equivalent to the highest commander. Willpower and consciousness could be improved through tempering. As for the strength of spiritual sense, it could only be improved through cultivation. What he had to do now was to use the chaotic will to temper his consciousness. When his consciousness was strengthened, his willpower would also be strengthened. I haven't cultivated like this for a long time. All along, he had been using the experience panel to improve. He rarely took the initiative to temper himself. Sometimes, Jiang Ci wondered if he would have been able to reach the same heights as he did today without the EXP panel. In terms of cultivation, there was definitely no way to experiment. But in terms of willpower, now was a very good opportunity to experiment. Thinking like this, after a while, suddenly Jiang Ci found that a wisp of golden light appeared in the still blood-colored killing intent in front of him. It looked very conspicuous, and he did not know where it came from. He used his spiritual sense to investigate it. Soon, he found that this wisp of golden light gave him a very strange feeling. It was different from the golden spiritual sense light of the image in his mind. The golden spiritual sense light was warm and vast, and the golden light in front of him was very cold. This reminded him of the last time he hunted a lord some time ago, when he encountered the four-striped dozong level man. The golden light emitted by the burly man was very similar to this one. This cold golden light seems to be a condensed Tao rhythm. Could it be a gold element Tao technique? This thought surfaced in Riverward's mind because that large man with golden light cultivated a metal-type Tao art. He used his spiritual sense to investigate within a radius of 100 kilometers. Not long after, he found that there was a wisp of cold golden light not far from here. Chapter 392. Not only 10 kilometers away, but also 20, 50, and 90 kilometers away, he found a wisp of cold golden light. Moreover, it was very regular, and they were probably all in the same line. Jiang Ci thought for a moment, and his figure flashed. He followed the wisps of cold golden light and crossed the void, heading to an unknown place in front of him. After a moment of adaptation, he had already begun to adapt to the evil aura here. Of course, although there were no other hidden cultivators nearby, he still had to be cautious. He did not move too fast, and maintained a posture that could attack or retreat at any time. Fortunately, these cold golden lights are not in the area below. Otherwise, even if I see them, I won't be able to detect them. As he moved forward, Jiang Xi found that there were more and more cold golden lights in the evil aura. Soon, he was blocked by a 1,000,000-meter-tall mountain in front of him. He came to the other side of the valley. There it is. Jiang Xi's gaze fell on a cave in the mountain wall. A thick mass of cold golden light was suspended there. It seemed to be wrapped in an object, giving off a pure and holy feeling. The wisps of golden light in the evil aura dissipated from here. Moreover, because his spiritual sense was suppressed by the evil aura, and because he was a little far away, he could not detect the object wrapped in the cold golden light with his spiritual sense. What was it? Jiang Xi was very curious. There are no other hidden cultivators nearby, and I don't sense any danger. This time, even his sharp intuition did not warn him. He was already here, and there was no way he could retreat. River Word decisively traversed the void and took a step forward. Kai, but before he could really get close, a part of the cold golden light floating in the cave. Like sharp blades, it fell on his body, leaving inch-deep wounds. In an instant, his entire body became dripping with blood. My body surpasses a superior-grade spiritual artifact. Jiang Xi was shocked. The cold golden light easily broke through his defense. Fortunately, these cold golden lights have no consciousness. Otherwise, with so many of them, I would be dismembered in an instant. Spiritual artifact battle armor. A black battle armor appeared and covered his whole body. Clang, clang, clang. Those cold golden lights fell on his body again and could not break his defense. With another step, he arrived in front of the thick, ice-cold golden light. Now that Jiang Xi saw it clearly, he was stunned. Finger. What was enveloped by the cold golden light was actually a golden finger. There was still a drop of dark red blood hanging from the cut of his finger. The aura of the golden finger and the drop of blood was very pure and holy. It's strange. Jiang Xi couldn't see anything else with his eyes. He decided to separate a strand of his spiritual sense to investigate. If there really is something strange, just abandon this wisp of spiritual sense. His spiritual sense penetrated the thick layer of ice-cold golden light and touched the golden finger. What a rich metal-type daoist rhyme. It really is a metal-type daoist art. Jiang Xi's eyes widened in disbelief. He had actually guessed correctly. This golden finger contained an unknown metal-type Dao art. After that, Jiang Xi examined it carefully again. In the end, he confirmed that the finger was not dangerous at all. What kind of expert left this behind? Just a finger hides such a rich metal-type Dao art. It's 10,000 times richer than the Dao of fire left behind by the Wen family's ancestor. Suddenly, Jiang Xi was stunned for a moment, and an idea popped up in his mind. These cold golden lights formed by the metal-type daoist rhyme had no consciousness. The metal-type Dao art on the golden finger could also be easily sensed by his spiritual sense. Could he comprehend the metal-type Dao art in it? If he could, then the harvest would be great. Humans could go back on their original path, but Dao arts could not. The great Dao was vast, and the Dao of heaven and earth was only a small Dao. When a cultivator's Dao art stepped into the great Dao level due to the repelling nature of the great Dao, it would be difficult to comprehend new Dao arts. Therefore, Jiang Xi had always had an idea. It was to comprehend more new Dao arts before stepping onto the great Dao. After all, every time he added a new Dao of heaven and earth, the amplification effect of his Dao fusion secret magic would increase by a lot. The effect of the Dao fusion technique of 2 Dao of heaven and earth was the original spiritual power amplitude 2. The effect of the Dao fusion technique of 3 Dao of heaven and earth was the original spiritual power amplitude 3. And so on. 4 Dao of heaven and earth was the spiritual power amplitude 4. Moreover, the stronger one was, the more obvious the effect would be. For example, using the Tao fusion technique of 3 Tao of heaven and earth to deduce. His current spiritual power amplitude was 2,000 times. After using the Tao fusion technique, his spiritual power amplitude 3 would become 6,000 times. When his spiritual power amplitude reached 10,000 times, he would use the Tao fusion technique again. His spiritual power amplitude 3 would be 30,000 times. The multiplier would increase from 4,000 to 20,000. Then, what if it's amplitude 4 and amplitude 5? Jiang Xi's eyes were filled with vigor. Although the Wine Sword Immortal had once suggested that he should specialize in Sword Tao. This was because if a cultivator walked on multiple paths of Tao arts, there would be concerns that it would be difficult to walk on them in the future. However, he had the experience points panel, so he didn't have to worry about the problem of not being able to walk on the path. At most, the experience points required to deduce would increase exponentially. The problem was that it was very difficult to find other types of Tao art inheritances. Although the Tao arts of the ancient Tao source world could be seen with the naked eye, they were not inheritances. Moreover, due to the various types of Tao arts, it was still very difficult to comprehend a new Tao art there. The so-called Tao art inheritance required the cultivator to take the initiative to disperse the consciousness in their Tao art. This allowed others to comprehend and refine the Tao art that they cultivated. However, as long as a truly powerful cultivator was alive, very few would be willing to leave behind a Tao art inheritance. That way, it would be easy to expose one's weakness. For example, the Tao art inheritance of the Wen clan on the Murong planet was extremely rare. However, even if Wen Yang had left behind a wisp of the Tao of Li Fire for the Wen clan, he had also left his consciousness in the Tao art. Only the Wen clan's bloodline could truly comprehend and refine that wisp of Tao of Li Fire. Back then, I was able to refine that wisp of Li Fire perhaps because of the memories in my mind. Perhaps it's because of Master Daoist Ge's inherited memories, or perhaps it's because of the existence of the experience points panel, Riverward thought. Therefore, in summary, Tao art inheritance could only be found by chance. Today, he had encountered it. Let's cultivate here. After that, Jiang Xi sat cross-legged in the cave. He was multitasking. He was tempering his willpower. He was deducing the 3 Tao arts that he already had. He was trying to comprehend a new Tao art. Because the metal-type Tao art on this golden finger did not have any consciousness. Therefore, he could boldly comprehend it with his spiritual consciousness. In less than an hour, you have comprehended the Vajra true intent. Experience points plus 100,000. The experience points panel's notification sounded. I succeeded. Another rare Tao art. Jiang Xi's face was filled with surprise. The speed of his comprehension was too fast. It was beyond his imagination. Chapter 393. In less than an hour, he had successfully comprehended the true meaning of this metal elemental Tao technique. The true meaning of Vajra. It was many times faster than when he comprehended the Ignis Tao technique. In addition to being pleasantly surprised, Jiang Xi also knew why he could comprehend it so quickly. First of all, he was now at the peak of the nascent soul stage, and his spiritual sense was stronger. Secondly, after refining the 2 Tao pattern blood crystals, his affinity with the heaven and earth Tao technique had increased by 2 times compared to before. Then, the metal elemental Tao technique contained in this golden finger emitted a Tao rhythm that was 10,000 times richer than the Ignis Tao left behind by Wen Yang. Combining these factors, even if there is interference from the other 3 Tao techniques of heaven and earth, the speed of my comprehension of the new Tao technique is also 100 times faster than when I comprehended the Ignis Tao technique. These thoughts took a long time to describe, but in fact, they only appeared in his mind for a moment. At this moment, Jiang Xi felt something in his heart. The golden finger in front of him emitted wisps of cold golden light. As if it was being summoned and attracted, it went straight into his mind. Riverward was startled, but then he reacted. The consciousness of the Tao technique inheritance left behind by the owner of this finger has long dissipated, and there is no danger. Then, he began to refine the cold golden light that hovered in his mind. However, due to the interference of the other 3 Tao techniques, he clearly felt that the refining speed was much slower. The process of comprehending the Tao technique had many aspects of enhancement, but the refining process did not. Even if Jiang Xi's spiritual sense was at the nascent soul stage, it still took nearly 10 minutes to refine a wisp of cold golden light. You have comprehended the Vajra inheritance, experience points plus 100,000, the experience points panel's notification sounded. However, the golden finger in front of him did not change. The degree of completeness of the Vajra Tao technique in the finger was beyond Jiang Xi's imagination. He continued to refine without rest. 3 days later, the golden finger still did not change. A month later, it was still the same. A year later, he could finally see with the naked eye that the color of the golden finger had become a little lighter. The Vajra Tao technique hidden in it had also weakened a little. What level of expert left this finger behind? The surprise in Jiang Xi's heart could no longer be described as shocking. This was because in the past year, he had obtained more than 5 billion experience points from refining the King Kong legacy on his finger. With such a huge amount of experience points, he was quite generous with his deductions. Vajra domain, level 10, 500000050000000. Half a month ago, the Vajra true intent had been upgraded to the Vajra domain. However, the two secret techniques, Tao fusion technique and Tao pattern technique, did not change. Jiang Xi understood that he would probably have to wait until the Vajra Tao art reached the level of the Tao of heaven and earth before it could form a connection with the original 3 Tao arts. At that time, my strength will undergo a qualitative change. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years had passed. Jiang Xi had been cultivating in the land of the fallen gods for a full 3 years. During this period of time, other than the improvement of the Vajra Tao art, he did not stop cultivating in other aspects. Under the impact and tempering of the boundless baleful aura, his willpower had obviously strengthened significantly. However, he was still unable to refine the 3rd Tao pattern blood crystal. The Green Lotus Sword Way had been deduced from the 26th transformation to the 32nd transformation. This was a significant improvement as well. However, the improvement of the Ignis Tao and the Gale Tao was obviously much slower than the Sword Tao. This was because the deduction of the Sword Tao was assisted by the Lotus Sword Manual. The Ignis Tao and the Gale Tao did not have it. It would be great if I could carry something similar to an inheritance altar with me for every Tao art, Jiang Xi fantasized. Then, he threw this unrealistic thought to the back of his mind. The Tao Alliance's 3 gates and 6 sects were so powerful, but after countless eras, they had only accumulated 44 inheritance altars. If he brought one of each Tao technique, he would have 4 Tao techniques in total. If that was the case, he would probably be struck by lightning wherever he went. It's time to contact Dudu. Jiang Xi held the communication bead and sent a message after coming to the land of the fallen gods to cultivate. He would contact his family every once in a while if he had nothing to do to let them know that he was safe. Not only Jiang Dudu, but he also contacted the Shen Tian, Li Bai Bai, the Wine Sword Immortal, and Granny Yang more often. Soon, the message was connected. In order to prevent others from discovering his true identity, Jiang Xi concealed his communication bead. He did not let Jiang Dudu's communication phantom appear on his side. Instead, his communication phantom appeared on the 3rd heaven's Dudu continent. After seeing Jiang Dudu, Jiang Xi was about to speak when he realized that there were others with her. "You're all here?" Jiang Xi was a little surprised. He saw that Mu Ning and Yang Jiufeng were with him. Like him, they were communication phantoms. "You appear and disappear like a ghost. If we don't look for Dudu, we won't be able to catch you," Yang Jiufeng said. "It's been more than 6 years. You're not still doing that danger level mission, are you?" Mu Ning was concerned about this point. "That's right." Jiang Xi nodded lightly. "You have to take it easy. If you can't do it, just retreat. In the past few years, other genius disciples in the same batch as us have died many times. Many of them died in their cultivation missions. The death rate of your dangerous mission is much higher than theirs." Mu Ning frowned. "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." Jiang Xi smiled. Jiang Dudu did not say anything, but there was a hint of worry in her eyes. My master also reminded me not to put the cart before the horse and get addicted to cultivation level missions. The most important thing is to comprehend the Tao and raise your cultivation level. You have to be careful. Otherwise, we'll catch up to your strength. Yang Jiufeng saw that the atmosphere was a little off and quickly joked. Why don't you guys believe me? Jiang Xi smiled. Mu Ning and Yang Jiufeng nodded. Let's go. We'll gather at the sky-connecting mountain. I'll let you guys see. Jiang Xi stared and said. Then, he told Jiang Dudu that he would come over later. After he finished speaking, his phantom transmission image disappeared. Such big words. I want to see how much you've improved in the past few years. Mu Ning muttered so confident. Challenging the sky-connecting mountain? Are you going to pass the 6th stage? Yang Jiufeng was also curious. In the sky-connecting mountain's river diagram, the sky-connecting mountain was located on the sky-connecting mountain. Jiang Xi, Mu Ning, and Yang Jiufeng appeared one after another. When the black-robed Lord Mountain Guardian saw the three of them, he smiled and asked, all of you want to challenge the sky-connecting mountain? There's no one on the Green Lotus sky-connecting mountain, but there are people on the Myriad sky-connecting mountain and Heavenly sun-connecting mountain. Lord Mountain Guardian, it's still too early for us to pass the next stage. Mu Ning smiled and said, it's this guy. From his tone, it seems like he wants to pass the 6th stage. Yang Jiufeng pointed at Jiang Xi. Of the two, one was pure and innocent, while the other was lively. Both of them were straightforward people. The Lord Mountain Guardian also looked at Jiang Xi in surprise. Lord Mountain Guardian, we want to see him challenge the sky-connecting mountain. Can we? Mu Ning asked again. You'll have to ask him. The Lord Mountain Guardian said. Riverward smiled faintly and nodded in agreement. Challenging the sky-connecting mountain was not a secret. It didn't matter even if he was seen. Moreover, Mu Ning and Yang Jiufeng were good friends. Chapter 394. Green Lotus Sky-Piercing Mountain. In the illusory space of the 6th stage, it was still an endless mountain range. The gatekeeper carried a long sword and stood in the air. It's you. It's only been 6 years since we last met, and you're confident of clearing the 6th stage? The gatekeeper had a deep impression of Jiang Xi. Because Jiang Xi was different from others. The frequency of challenging the sky-piercing mountain was low, and his success rate was high. The last 2 times were 10 and 20 years apart respectively. This time, it was only 6 years, and he broke through again. Won't you know if you try? Jiang Xi smiled confidently. Buzz, the long sword emitted a sword hum. In an instant, 3 Tao of heaven and earth fused and poured into the sword body. Boom. Then he held the long sword, his aura surging as he charged straight at the gatekeeper. It's just that your sword Tao has improved a little. The other 2 Tao techniques have not changed much. With such strength, you'll definitely lose. The gatekeeper shook his head lightly. His soaring sword intent instantly swept toward Jiang Xi with 100,000 sword light. But in the next moment, a scene that shocked the gatekeeper appeared. Jiang Xi actually ignored his attack, allowing the sword intent to transform into 100,000 sword light to land on his body. Clang! Jiang Xi's body actually emitted a huge vibration. What a strong defense. The gatekeeper's eyes focused. He attacked again. Sword shadows whistled, turning into a sword curtain that filled the sky. Countless sword lights shot out. However, Jiang Xi still ignored it. Relying on his body realm, he charged forward. Clang! Clang! Those sword lights only caused slight wounds on his body at most. It's my turn. Jiang Xi's figure flashed past one image after another. A sword with a 6,000 times spirit power amplitude cut through space and immediately appeared in front of the gatekeeper. In comparison, the 6th stage spirit power amplitude was 6,400 times, 400 times higher than his. Last time, he was defeated by this point. And this time, he relied on his tyrannical body to block the gatekeeper's sword. After getting close at the same time, he stabbed out with his sword. The gatekeeper died. 6th stage, passed. On the platform in front of the 44 sky-piercing mountains, a three-dimensional phantom showed the scene of Jiang Ci challenging the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain in real time. The sixth stage. It's over just like that. The further you go in the Heavenspan mountain, the more difficult it is to pass. The difficulty of passing the sixth stage is even greater than the previous 5 stages combined. This freak, how did he improve so much in just 6 years? This isn't the ancient Tao origin world. If it were the ancient Tao origin world, it would still be acceptable to use 6 years to advance one stage, but this is the origin universe. Mu Ning and Yang Jiufeng were flabbergasted. According to their initial assumption, it would take Jiang Ci at least 50 years to pass the 6th stage after leaving the ancient Tao origin world. It had only been 6 years. Even the mountain keeper was startled. He stared deeply at Jiang Ci in the illusion. This little fellow is really different from the masses. He's taken 3 paths of Tao arts and has even taken the path of body refinement. How magnanimous. The 7th stage of the Green Lotus Heavenly Mountain. In the illusory space, there was still an endless mountain range. The gatekeeper said with a serious face, "A body that surpasses a high-grade spiritual weapon? Did you walk the path of body refinement again?" However, it's rare to see someone reach this level in just 6 years. The gatekeeper of each stage of the Heavenspan mountain was the same person, but their Tao arts were different. The gatekeeper had fought with Jiang Ci a few times, so he was very clear about Jiang Ci's previous Tao arts. It had only been 6 years, but Jiang Ci's Tao arts had improved so much. His talent was shocking. The entry level of body refinement was very simple, but it was even more difficult to cultivate to a higher level than Tao art. Jiang Ci smiled but didn't say anything. His method of fighting the previous stage was a little shameless. However, his Tao arts was also his strength, so it was in accordance with the rules. He couldn't use his spiritual armor in the Heavenspan mountain, therefore, his body, which surpassed a high-grade spiritual weapon, had a huge advantage. The strength of a high-grade spiritual weapon was no joke. Although the gatekeeper's Tao arts were strong, they had to maintain the same cultivation level as him, which was the peak of the nascent soul stage. Under this premise, the gatekeeper could only break through his defense at most. Wanting to cause fatal damage to him was very difficult. Every 3 stages of the Heavenspan mountain, the difficulty rises by a major level. Just relying on your Tao arts, you can't pass the 7th stage. The gatekeeper snorted lightly. "Let's begin." Jiang Ci nodded and said. A moment later, Jiang Ci fell silent. Failure. The 7th stage was indeed different. Although the gatekeeper's spirit energy amplification multiplier only increased by 900. However, the attack of the sword will had a qualitative leap. It easily broke through his body's defense. The news of Jiang Ci clearing the 6th stage of the Heavenspan mountain spread very quickly. The genius disciples of the same batch as him were stimulated again. On the platform in front of the 44 Heavenspan mountains, one figure after another appeared. At this time, Jiang Ci, Mu Ning, and Yang Jiufeng had already left. Therefore, among the geniuses, the ones who received the most attention were naturally Ji Wei and Quang Lang, the 2 fourth firmament disciples. Quang Lang's arrogance had long been worn down. Although he was stimulated, he could still maintain his calm at this time. He glanced at Ji Wei and understood Ji Wei's current feelings very well. Previously in the ancient Tao origin world, he had watched as Jiang Ci caught up to him step by step and surpassed him. At that time, he had been feeling like this. As expected, Ji Wei seemed to have been greatly stimulated. Although he had always been cold, a light flashed through his eyes. Then, under everyone's gaze, he came before the gatekeeper. "My lord, I want to challenge the mountain." "Go, there's no one on the Heavenspan mountain." The gatekeeper nodded. He naturally knew what Ji Wei was thinking. A strand of white hair floated in front of Ji Wei's forehead as he flew towards the Heavenspan mountain. The gatekeeper looked at Ji Wei's back and lightly shook his head. The difficulty of the Heavenspan mountain increases greatly with every 3 stages. The 7th stage is much more difficult than the 6th. He didn't know if Ji Wei could pass the 7th stage. The heaven-span mountain's illusory space was the universe's starry sky. The gatekeeper was a young man with a head full of white hair. He looked at Ji Wei expressionlessly. The Void Universe altar is one of the strongest of the 44 inheritance altars. It cultivates both the Tao of time and the Tao of space. Your attainments in the Tao of space are very high. If you had chosen an inheritance altar related to space, you would have passed the 9th stage long ago. However, your Tao of time is only at the strength of the 3rd stage at most. Therefore, you are still far from being able to pass the 7th stage of the Heavenspan Mountain. Ji Wei's gaze flickered, but he didn't say a word. Then, he directly pulled out his sword and shattered the space. He transformed into nearly 10,000 phantoms and appeared in various fragments at the same time, attacking the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper shook his head and lightly waved the sword in his hand. Time and space changed, and the shattered space returned to normal. Under this attack, Ji Wei seemed to be defenseless and was killed in one strike. He was dead. He had failed the challenge. After leaving the illusory space, Ji Wei stood on the platform of the 7th stage of the Heavenspan Mountain. His expression, who had always been cold, also changed. Chapter 395. The Mountain Guardian could see the situation on the Void Universe Skyspan Mountain. After watching the scene of Ji Wei's failure, he sighed softly. This little guy is too impatient. His spatial Tao was already comparable to a Tribulation Transcender during the 9 Regions Genius battle. If he specialized in spatial Tao, none of the young people in this batch could surpass him. If things went a little smoother, he could become an immortal within 1,000 years. But he was too ambitious. He wanted to cultivate time Tao to a high level before becoming an immortal. That way, he could transcend 9 tribulations and have a chance to become a great Tao immortal. Therefore, when he chose the inheritance altar in the ancient Tao origin world, he chose the Void Universe altar that contained both time and space. Unfortunately, this path is too difficult. In this epoch, the only one who had a chance to reach this step was Yang Lu. Only Lu Yang of the Sword Gate, but he also died before becoming an immortal. The choice of the inheritance altar was a hindrance to him. Now, someone has caught up to him and he has suffered a blow. The Mountain Guardian shook his head. This is also a good thing. Hopefully, he can change his mind in time. As for Jiang Ci, he walked 3 paths of Tao, and in addition to the path of body refinement, he was walking 4 paths at the same time. In the Mountain Guardian's eyes, this might be another kind of talent that could not be compared. Of course, if he knew that River Word was still cultivating a metal element Tao art, then he would probably have a different thought. Purple firmament sect 5th heaven. In an immortal's cave residence surrounded by clouds and mist. Immortal Wu Yi's stiff face was now filled with viciousness. His improvement is too fast. It must be because of the purple firmament sword manual. This should have been my opportunity. Wait for him to die. Jiang Ci, who had been silent for 6 years, came out and threw a deep sea bomb before fleeing. He declined all invitations, and after chatting with Jiang Dudu for a while, he entered a state of cultivation again. In the huge valley at the core of the fallen god's land, he quietly cultivated. He tempered his will, deduced Tao techniques, and refined the metal-type Tao techniques in the golden finger in the blink of an eye. Another 10 years passed. 400,000 meters down the huge valley, in the cave on the mountain wall, Jiang Ci sat cross-legged. His body was covered in a thick layer of dust, making him look like a stone statue. He hadn't moved for a long time. As he continued to refine and absorb the Vajra Tao art within the golden finger, the golden color of the finger became lighter and lighter. On this day, the last strand of gold on his finger faded. At this moment, his fingers had turned completely black, like black jade. The cold golden light that filled the cave had long since dissipated. Jiang Ci's body shook slightly, and the dust on his body flew off. He opened his eyes, and a cold light flashed. Compared to when he first came to the land of the fallen gods, his eyes were more resolute and pure. The only thing left in the cave was the dense blood-red baleful aura and the chaotic will that was still attacking his consciousness. After cultivating here for 13 years, the strength of my consciousness has increased quite a bit. Let's see if I can refine the third Tao pattern blood crystal. With that thought in mind, he took out a blood-red crystal and began to refine it. Kill. Kill. I can't accept this. Kill all the demons. I'd rather die than be a slave. Kill. An even more violent chaotic will instantly filled his mind. Jiang Xi's eyes turned red, and his breathing quickened. His bloodthirsty thoughts became extremely strong. But this time, he held on. He successfully refined the third Tao pattern blood crystal. Looks like the effect of the training is still very obvious. My affinity with the heaven and earth Tao has increased again. I can continue to improve my Tao pattern technique. Jiang Xi smiled. Then, he let his clone on the first moon of earth refine the spiritual fruit and increase the level of his Tao pattern technique. After doing all that, he looked at the completely discolored finger and chuckled. I didn't expect that the Tao technique hidden in a finger would be worth 100 billion experience points after completely refining it. However, although he had gained so much experience points, nearly half of them were used up because he had deduced the Tao technique. He checked the changes on the experience points panel. Experience points, 61. 348 billion. The remaining experience points were still very considerable. Then, Jiang Xi put away the finger that had turned into black jade. At the same time, he thought to himself, humans have 10 fingers. This finger is obviously from a human hand. Then, are there any other fingers in this huge valley? If there were, then the harvest this time would be even greater. A golden finger could be worth 100 billion experience points. Jiang Xi left the cave with anticipation. His figure flickered in this boundless evil aura, and his spiritual consciousness spread out to search. First, of course, he searched from 300,000 to 400,000 meters from the top of the valley. There was no need to search the area above 300,000 meters. There were many secluded cultivators there. If there was a similar golden finger, it would have been discovered long ago. Below 300,000 meters, the evil aura was denser, and the chaotic will was stronger. Even a 3-striped fighting spirit would not dare to go deep there. Therefore, Jiang Xi was the only one in this area at the moment. He also relied on the image of himself in his mind to finally descend to this position. The diameter of this valley was more than 10,000 kilometers. The area between 300,000 to 400,000 meters was also 100 kilometers from top to bottom. To Jiang Xi, it was neither big nor small. Under normal circumstances, the spiritual consciousness of a perfected nascent soul could explore as far as 1,000 kilometers. The search speed would definitely be very fast. Now, because of the dense evil aura in the valley, the spiritual consciousness was greatly suppressed. He could only explore as far as 100 kilometers, and his speed was correspondingly slower. After searching for an hour, Jiang Xi's face lit up. 60 kilometers ahead of him, his spiritual sense discovered another orb of ice-cold golden light. It was the same as the golden finger he saw in the cave. His figure flickered, crossed the void, and arrived in one step in the next moment. Jiang Xi discovered that the object wrapped in the second ball of cold golden light was indeed a golden finger. This should be the index finger. He compared it. In the storage ring, the finger that had turned into black jade was the little finger. Put it away first, then look for the others. Jiang Xi was very excited. He specially used a new storage ring to put away the second golden finger. This was because the metal elemental Tao art on the finger was constantly emitting a sharp golden light like a blade. If it was placed in a commonly used storage ring, it would easily destroy the other items in the storage space. Next, he used another 3 days to search the area between 300,000 and 400,000 meters thoroughly. 3 days later, Jiang Xi stood on a raised platform of one of the million meters tall mountains. Looking at the boundless evil aura, he frowned slightly. Because he only found 2 golden fingers. That's it. Normal people have 10 fingers. Including the one I've already refined, I only found 3 golden fingers in this area. Chapter 396. Jiang Xi looked up again and shook his head. There are so many cultivators in the area above. Even if there were other golden fingers, they would have been discovered long ago. Looks like I can only go down and explore. Although the strength of my spiritual sense hasn't increased, after so many years of training, my consciousness and will have improved a lot. I can go deeper. Let's see where I can go first. He leaped, stepped on the void, and walked down the valley. 410,000 meters, 430,000 meters, 450,000 meters, I can still take it. Continue, 470,000 meters. As he descended, Jiang Ci found that the range of his spiritual sense was constantly being compressed. Continue. He gritted his teeth and descended again. 490,000 meters. Something's not right. Jiang Ci's expression changed. Kill. Kill. The chaotic willpower that pounced on him became even more violent, as if it had reached a peak. And his consciousness was on the verge of collapse under the impact of this chaotic willpower. It was the limit. But this was not enough to make Jiang Ci's expression change. What shocked him was that he actually heard the sound of waves while his consciousness was in a daze. He endured the limit of his consciousness and went down another 10,000 meters, reaching 500,000 meters. The sound of waves was slightly clearer, but there was still an extremely dense blood-colored evil aura in front of him. He could not see the scene below. And the further down he went, the stronger the evil aura was, further suppressing his spiritual sense. Now, the range of his spiritual sense was less than 10 kilometers. About 550,000 meters down the huge valley was a sea of blood. The blood-colored evil aura condensed into liquid here, converging into an ocean. A gust of wind blew, and waves rose from the sea of blood. At this moment, in the void 30,000 meters above the sea of blood, a burly man sat cross-legged, surrounded by a dense evil aura. The burly man looked up, and a cold light flashed. That was where Jiang Ci was another intruder. He grabbed the communication bead and sent out a message. Sir, a 3-striped fighting spirit has come down. Should we kill him? Soon, he received a message. 3-striped fighting spirit? I'll take care of it. Below, a huge black palace stood in the sea of evil aura. Under the palace, there was a huge blood pool. Inside the blood pool, there were many cultivators with bloodshot eyes. Each of them had a black chain tied around their necks. They had all lost their minds, leaving only madness, bloodthirstiness, and the desire to kill. They had already become mad demons. At this moment, the chain around the neck of one of the skinny men suddenly opened. Go and kill the intruder, a voice rang out beside the scrawny man's ear. Instantly, the blood-red light in his lifeless eyes burned brightly. Kill, 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 he roared and rushed out with his saber. Jiang Ci took a deep breath. The image of observing self in his mind constantly emitted the golden light of spiritual awareness to fight against the chaotic will. His consciousness remained clear, and he felt that he could still go down a little further. Let's see where the limit is. After descending another 10,000 meters, the sound of the waves became even clearer. What is that? There's actually a sea of blood below us. Jiang Ci was very surprised. One could vaguely see that there was a boundless sea of murderous aura below. What shocked him even more was that there was a black palace in the sea of blood. That palace is very far away from me. If I can see it from here, it means that the size of the palace is not small. If he dares to build a palace and cultivate in the sea of blood formed by the murderous aura, it means that he is very powerful. Let's go quickly. His sharp intuition told Jiang Ci that there was danger. He turned and left immediately. But at this moment, roar! A furious roar rang out. From the blood-red murderous aura below, a scrawny man emitting a blood-red light rushed out. The man's eyes were red and he was drooling. He let out a beast-like roar. There are other cultivators. Jiang Ci immediately became vigilant. No. He has already gone mad. His mind has been scattered by the chaotic will. Kill. The scrawny man roared crazily. Saber light spewed out and slashed at Jiang Ci. Crazy 3-striped fighting spirit, I'll help you free yourself. Although Jiang Ci was surprised, he was not afraid. He unsheathed his sword. The killing shadow sword transformed into sword flowers like a blooming green lotus. A large amount of sword energy was released. Clang, clang, clang. The sword energy landed on the scrawny man's body and made a loud noise. It only left a slight wound. Roar. The scrawny man did not care about his injuries. He continued to charge at Jiang Ci with a ferocious expression. However, that was not Jiang Ci's final attack. His figure had already arrived in front of the scrawny man along with the sword energy. The long sword whistled and pierced the man's forehead, shattering his primordial spirit. The scrawny man lost his breath. A look of relief flashed across his eyes as he fell. 30,000 meters above the sea of blood, the burly man on the platform frowned. He sent another message, "Sir, the intruder killed the blood slave. Let me kill him. You don't have to care about this anymore." He received such a message. A black figure with a terrifying aura flew out from the black palace below and flew straight to the top of the valley. When the burly man saw this, he was shocked. Sir actually took action personally. At the same time, the corpse of the scrawny man had already disappeared in the boundless baleful aura. Jiang Ci only glanced at it and gently shook his head. If it was an ordinary three-striped battle spirit, facing such a fearless attack, the chances of survival would be very small. He could not stay here any longer. It was better to leave quickly. Boom. Suddenly, a huge spiritual sense pressure descended. Jiang Ci's expression changed greatly. A tribulation transcender? Run. His figure turned into a gust of wind and quickly flew toward the top of the valley. You want to escape in front of me? A majestic voice echoed between heaven and earth who, at the same time, a middle-aged man wearing black armor quietly appeared above Jiang Ci. Then, Jiang Ci found that he seemed to have fallen into a muddy swamp. It's over. He was not this person's opponent at all. Fight to the death. Jiang Ci would not give up so easily. But at this time, the middle-aged man's voice sounded. Which temple are you from? Jiang Ci was stunned for a moment. There was still a turning point. He quickly said, I'm a rogue cultivator. I didn't join the 5 temples. The middle-aged man's face actually showed a trace of a smile, but it was very ugly. He said in a low voice, very good. I'm Kos, the elder of the Golden Vein Temple. Your talent is not bad. You can easily kill one of my blood slaves. Now, I'll give you 2 choices. Submit to me, or be refined into a blood slave. Jiang Ci's expression changed. The pressure of the Dao technique binding him showed no signs of weakening. He was sure that once he refused to submit, what awaited him would be a devastating blow. What to do? Abandon this body? He still had a clone on the first moon of Earth. Even if the original body died, the clone could continue to live. But the original body had all his belongings. Chapter 397. More importantly, he had no chance to end his own life in front of Kos. If he was refined into a blood slave, his doppelganger might be affected as well. Then it would all be over. Jiang Ci's expression changed as his mind raced. Kos was not in a hurry. His gaze was fixed on Jiang Ci. Soon, Jiang Ci made his decision and bowed respectfully. I am willing to submit to Sir. Haha. Great. Kos laughed heartily. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, in the next moment, more than 60 figures flew over from all directions, including the burly man who first discovered Jiang Ci. Congratulations, sir, for subduing another genius. Voices of congratulations sounded in unison. Jiang Ci held his breath as he was overwhelmed with shock. A total of 65 people. 3 4-striped Do Zongs. The remaining 62 were all 3-striped Do Spirit. Fuck. He had really barged into the forbidden area. 4-striped Do Zongs were equivalent to the unification stage. Moreover, their bodies were even stronger because of the cultivation method. Although 3-striped Do Spirits were slightly weaker, they were only at the primordial soul stage. However, these 3-striped Do Spirits gave him the feeling that they were all at the perfect primordial soul stage. None of them were simple. At this moment, the elder of the Golden Stripe Shrine, Kos, also appeared much friendlier. He asked, "What is your name?" Jiang Ci. Good. From today onwards, You are a black-robed priest under me, Kos. Kos nodded. Then, he said to one of the four-striped dozongs, I will leave Jiang Ci to you. After he finished speaking, his figure disappeared. Was the burly man who first discovered Jiang Ci. He smiled at Jiang Ci and said, I am Ter. I am in charge of all the black-robed priests under Sir Kos. You can call me Captain. Greetings, Captain. River Word hurriedly bowed. At this moment, the other 62 three-striped doe spirits surrounded Jiang Ci and began to discuss. Kid, your performance just now was not bad. Even an ordinary three-striped doe spirit couldn't deal with Sir's bloodslave. You actually killed it so easily. Very powerful. Back then, it took me a lot of effort to get rid of a bloodslave. The bloodslaves only have the will to kill. It is very difficult for a weaker three-striped doe ling to survive in the hands of the bloodslaves. It looks like Jiang Ci is the strongest amongst us three-striped doe spirits. Jiang Ci could only agree and laugh dryly. Being surrounded by 3 4-striped dozongs and 62 top 3-striped doe spirits was still very dangerous. Fortunately, these people didn't reveal any killing intent and were all very amiable. It seemed that it was a wise choice to seek refuge. All right, let's all go train. Said with a straight face. Yes, Captain. The crowd left one after another. Jiang Ci secretly heaved a sigh of relief and pretended to be puzzled. Captain, who exactly is Lord Kos? Just now, when he observed Kos from a close distance, he found that the aura he emitted was somewhat different from that of a tribulation transcender. Who is Lord Kos? Ter laughed and proudly said, he is the most talented genius of our doe tattoo continent in the last 10 million years. Although he is still a 4-striped dozong, his strength is comparable to a 5-striped doe king. He has even killed many 5-striped doe kings and is the most powerful elder of the Golden Pattern Temple. His status is not inferior to those 5-striped doe kings. Hearing this, Jiang Ci was really surprised. A 5-striped doe king was a tribulation transcender. This Kos was only a 4-striped dozong at the Dao integration stage, yet he could kill many tribulation transcenders. He was indeed very strong. Even in the original universe, he was a top genius. At this time, Ter's expression became serious again. Jiang Ci, I don't care what experience you have in the past or who you have enmity with. I hope that you can be loyal to Lord Kos in the future. As long as you are fully loyal, there will naturally be many benefits. With Lord's position in the Golden Vein Temple, there are many benefits. With Lord Kos' position in the Golden Pattern Temple, he can obtain all kinds of cultivation resources for you. Jiang Ci chuckled in his heart. Be loyal to him? Although Ter's words were very tempting, that was only relative to the native cultivators of the doe tattoo continent. No matter how rich the cultivation resources of the doe tattoo continent were, could they be compared to the Purple Heaven sect? The Purple Heaven sect was the actual ruler of the Dao Alliance. However, he still put on an excited and expectant look and said excitedly, Captain, don't worry. I will do my best to be loyal to Lord Kos. Millimeter, not bad. Now, follow me to the Bloodsea Palace. Ter nodded in satisfaction. The Bloodsea Palace was located 550,000 meters below the valley. With the strength of Jiang Ci's will and consciousness, he could still persevere. Ter also understood this point, so he quickly brought River Word to the Black Palace in the Blood Sea of Baleful Aura. In front of the palace, Jiang Ci still put on an expression as if he had never seen the world, not revealing any flaws. After entering the first floor of the palace, he saw a wide corridor with many cultivation rooms on one side. These cultivation rooms are where us black-robed priests usually cultivate. I will take you to find an empty room, Ter said. Jiang Ci remained calm and collected. The two of them walked along the corridor. After walking for a while, Jiang Ci's footsteps paused, and his gaze was attracted by a display shelf on the side of the corridor. On the shelf, there were skulls, finger bones, leg bones, etc. And these bones were the same color as the finger that had turned into black jade. The difference was that these bones had no flesh, but the black jade finger had flesh. After seeing these things clearly, Jiang Ci remained calm on the surface, but his heart was filled with shock. Could it be that these black jade bones used to contain Tao arts, but they were refined by someone, so they turned into black jade? Then, he asked her, Captain, these are? These are the Tao pattern secret treasures that Lord collected after killing those 5-patterned king of fighters. Although they are useless now, they can still be used as a symbol of battle achievements, so Lord placed them here, Ter said with a smile. Tao pattern secret treasures? Jiang Ci was really puzzled now, as he had never heard of them. Oh, I forgot. You have never joined the 5 great temples, so you don't know about these. Ter chuckled. He explained, when a Tao pattern cultivator becomes a 5-patterned king of fighters, the Tao pattern will solidify in a certain part of the body, such as the hands, feet, eyes, etc. After death, these parts of the body will turn into Tao pattern secret treasures. For example, these are all left behind by the 5-patterned king of fighters after he died. They are king-level Tao pattern secret treasures. Above the king level is the emperor level, but the emperor level Tao pattern secret treasures are all collected in the 5 great temples. King level, emperor level. Jiang Ci said in surprise, there are emperor level Tao pattern secret treasures? Is there really a 6-patterned king of fighters? A 6-patterned king of fighters was an expert at the Tao immortal realm. Of course there are. Countless years ago, there were 5 6-patterned king of fighters from the 5 great temples. They paid the price with their lives to defeat those extraterritorial demons. You should know that the land of the fallen gods was the battlefield between these ancestors and the extraterritorial demons. And this valley is where the golden-patterned king of fighters fell. Ter sighed. Chapter 398. Jiang Ci was surprised. Was this the place where the golden rune Do Huang fell? Could it be that the 3 fingers he obtained were left behind by the golden rune Do Huang? He quickly denied this conjecture. The golden rune Do Huang had been dead for who knows how many years. How could he have been left behind until now and just happened to be discovered by him? How powerful must one's protagonist aura be to have such an opportunity? At this time, Ter sighed and said, unfortunately, any emperor-level Tao pattern artifact is an existence that can only be encountered but not sought. It is full of mysteries. I once heard Lord Kos say that one must have some kind of fate to discover an emperor-level Tao pattern artifact. If there is no fate, even if it is placed in front of you, you won't be able to see it. Even a 5-pattern Do Huang can't actively detect the existence of an emperor-level Tao pattern artifact. Just like this valley, it is the place where the golden rune Do Huang fell. A 5-pattern Do Huang expert once said that after the golden rune Do Huang fell, both of his palms turned into Tao pattern artifacts. But for countless years, the experts of our golden rune temple have searched this place many times but only found 1 palm left behind by the golden rune Do Huang. So in this valley, there should be another palm, but no one has been able to find it. Ter was still talking. Jiang Ci was already stunned. Could it be that he was the so-called fated person? Wasn't this too much of a cheat? Obviously, the 3 fingers that he had already obtained were from the other hand. However, he still had doubts in his heart. Captain, what is the use of Tao pattern artifacts? Can't they be used as weapons? Just now, Ter had mentioned that these Tao pattern cardinal treasures were useless, and they could only be used as decorations to show off his achievements. Logically speaking, the higher the cultivation of the Tao pattern cultivator, the stronger the body. For example, a 5-pattern Do Huang's body could reach the immortal artifact level. Even if he died, the Tao pattern artifacts from his body parts could be used as immortal artifacts, right? Ter laughed and explained, haha, back then, I also asked Lord Kos this question. He told me that the king-level Tao pattern artifacts were indeed useless because the Tao patterns of the king-level Tao pattern artifacts are not permanent and will dissipate in a very short period of time. Without the Tao patterns, these monarch Tao pattern cardinal treasures are only a little sturdier. They are far less convenient to use than supreme-grade spirit artifacts or inferior-grade immortal artifacts. As for the emperor-grade Tao pattern cardinal treasures, although the Tao patterns have been permanently solidified, they are basically used to comprehend Tao techniques. Using a royal-grade Tao pattern cardinal treasure as a weapon? First of all, we are definitely not qualified. The only ones who had the qualification to do so were Lord Sai Sai and other 5 pattern Do Wangs. However, since we don't fancy monarch-grade Dao pattern cardinal treasures, Lord Kosi and the others naturally don't fancy monarch-grade Dao pattern cardinal treasures either. In addition, Dao pattern cardinal treasures are rare items. Therefore, there is basically no one in the entire Do pattern continent who would use them as weapons. After Jiang Xi heard this, his heart was filled with eagerness. In the eyes of the experts of the battle pattern continent, king-class Dao pattern cardinal treasures were only collectibles. Emperor-grade Dao pattern secret treasures were mostly used to comprehend Dao techniques. However, he had the experience points panel, so he could refine and absorb the Daoist techniques within. Others might not care, but he did. Thinking of this, Jiang Xi felt that it was a pity and helplessness. It was a pity that the Dao patterns of the king-class Dao pattern cardinal treasures in front of him had already dissipated. There were no Dao techniques left. The helplessness was that he clearly knew that the other Palm Dao pattern cardinal treasure left behind by the golden pattern Do Huang was kept in the golden pattern shrine, but he couldn't get it. He couldn't run over and ask for it. That would be courting death. At this moment, Ter seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, "By the way, if you can cultivate to the 4-pattern Do Zone realm, remember to apply to Lord. With Lord status in the shrine, he can give you the royal grade Dao pattern cardinal treasure left behind by the golden pattern Do Huang for you to comprehend for 100 years. Back then, when I cultivated to the 4-pattern Do Zone realm, I was lucky enough to comprehend it once." Jiang Xi was stunned. His heart jumped a few times. He was very excited. Comprehend for 100 years. As long as he had a chance to absorb and refine the Dao techniques within it. After Terrace finished explaining, he ignored Jiang Xi's abnormal reaction. In his opinion, these reactions were too normal. No matter who heard these secrets for the first time, they couldn't remain calm. He continued to walk forward with Jiang Xi. Soon, they came to an empty cultivation room. Ter said, "This is where you will cultivate in the future. Of course, you are not forced to cultivate here. You can also choose to cultivate in other places in this valley, as long as you don't leave the valley. Remember, without Lord's order, no one is allowed to leave this valley." Jiang Xi nodded, "I will remember." Then, Ter took out a black battle robe and a communication pearl. "This is the equipment of the black-robed priest of the Golden Pattern Shrine. Keep it well." Jiang Xi took it. "Cultivate well and strive to reach the 4-pattern Do Zone realm as soon as possible." Ter finally smiled and exhorted. After saying that, he left. Jiang Xi breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, the sense of crisis in his heart finally decreased by 3 points. There were still 97 points left. He checked the black battle robe and the communication pearl. The black battle robe was an ordinary spiritual battle robe, so he put it on symbolically. The communication mark in this communication pearl is a little strange. It should have been left by Kosi or Ter. It can be used for surveillance. He didn't need to think to know that he just verbally surrendered. It was impossible for the other party to believe him so easily. A 4-pattern dozong was at the unification stage. No one who could cultivate to this stage was a fool. Based on the information we know, this Kos really wants to recruit subordinates to strengthen his own forces. However, I definitely can't cultivate here, Jiang Xi pondered in his heart. He wanted to find a place to refine the 2 golden fingers he had obtained before. Moreover, he wanted to search the area between 400,000 and 500,000 meters in the valley. If the golden fingers really came from the golden-robed dozong, it meant that he was fated with this object. Perhaps he could find the last 2 fingers. As for more, Ter had just said that the other palm of the golden-robed dozong had been found by the golden pattern shrine. As long as he could cultivate to a 4-pattern dozong, he could apply for the opportunity to comprehend it for 100 years. After that, Jiang Xi only stayed in the cultivation room for half a day before leaving the Bloodsea Palace and flying towards the top of the valley. After flying for 10,000 meters, Jiang Xi received Ter's spiritual sense transmission. Jiang Xi, where are you going to cultivate? Captain, I have been cultivating in a cave 400,000 meters below the valley all these years. I still want to go there to cultivate. Jiang Ci explained through his spiritual sense transmission. That location is not within the range of my spiritual sense. If you encounter danger, I can't help you. Captain, don't worry. If there is danger, I will come down immediately. Since you have made up your mind, I won't stop you. But remember, without the permission of the Lord, you can't leave this valley. The communication pearl I gave you must also be with you. You can't put it in a storage treasure. Understood? Chapter 399. Ter's spiritual sense transmission did not sound again. Jiang Ci felt relieved and continued to fly upward. The cave at 400,000 meters is not within Ter's detection range. It seems that after a four-striped dozong went deep into the valley, the detection range of his spiritual sense did not exceed 200 kilometers. According to Ter's words, this communication bead is the one that plays a monitoring role. I still can't be careless. They may have other monitoring methods. Jiang Ci shook his head again. Next, he did not immediately return to the cave. Instead, he searched the area between 400,000 and 500,000 meters. He wanted to see if he could find the remaining 2 golden fingers. At the same time, he wanted to confirm if he was the fated person. Because the concentration of evil aura in this area was stronger, the search speed was slower. 5 days later, he completed the carpet search. Jiang Ci returned to the cave calmly, but he was pleasantly surprised. He was indeed the fated person. His luck was good. He found the remaining 2 golden fingers in the area between 400,000 and 500,000 meters. He did not need to take the risk to search in the sea of blood, nor did he need to waste time in the area above 300,000 meters in the valley. Moreover, he had also confirmed that Ter was indeed unable to detect this area. At the same time, the burly Ter was still guarding in the boundless evil aura 30,000 meters above the sea of blood. He frowned slightly. He stopped. In the past few days, through the imprint on the communication bead, he found that Jiang Ci had been moving constantly, as if he was searching for something. Could it be that he also wants to find the Dao pattern secret treasure left behind by a gold-striped Do Huang? Ter shook his head gently. He had done the same thing in the past. Not only him, but these black-robed priests under Lord Kos had also searched this valley. The fated person? He did not think that Jiang Ci could find the Dao pattern secret treasure of a gold-striped Do Huang. This Jiang Ci said that he was loyal to Lord Kos, but he still has other ideas in his heart. Let's observe for a while. If there is really a problem, don't blame me for being impolite. Ter's expression was cold. He was not as kind as he appeared. All the black-robed priests under Kos were under his command. If there was conclusive evidence, he could directly kill the problematic person. In the cave 400,000 meters away from the valley, Jiang Ci sat down cross-legged. With a flip of his hand, he took out a golden finger and started to refine it. He was not worried that his actions would be discovered. Otherwise, he would have been noticed when he was trying to assimilate the first finger. The concentration of the baleful aura in this place is quite good for tempering one's will. I'll continue cultivating like this. Now, there are 2 paths. Firstly, he had to fuse more Dao pattern blood crystals so that his Dao pattern art could reach the limit of 3 patterns. In this way, the strength of my body might be able to reach the level of a top-tier spirit weapon in advance. At that time, I will be equivalent to a 4-line dozong. Secondly, if the Vajra Dao art reaches the level of the Dao of heaven and earth, the 2 great mystic techniques, Dao fusion art and Dao pattern art, might undergo a transformation. Let's not talk about the Dao fusion technique for now. I will be able to refine the Vajra Dao art into a Dao pattern, and the toughness of my body will also increase. These 2 paths could allow him to reach the level of a 4-line dozong in advance. After becoming a 4-mark dozong, he would be able to apply for the opportunity to comprehend the Emperor-grade Dao pattern cardinal treasure from Kosi. After deciding on the direction of his cultivation, Jiang Ci once again entered a state of cultivation. It was still the same 3 things: tempering one's will, deducing the Dao art, and assimilating the gold element Tao art in the golden finger. Other than contacting his family, master, and friends once in a while, no one else could contact him. In the blink of an eye, another 50 years had passed. This was also the longest time Jiang Ci had been in seclusion since he started cultivating. Kanglan planet, Tsungyun sect. On a mountain peak with a beautiful environment. Jiang Ci, Shen Tian, and Li Baibai sat facing each other. Other than Shen Tian, who was in his real body, Jiang Ci and Li Baibai were both transmission mirages. Of course, on the surface, there was no difference between a transmission mirage and a real one. The three of them had completely different temperaments. Shen Tian was like a saber that was about to split open the sky. He was faintly in harmony with the heavens and earth. Li Baibai was ethereal and calm. It was as if the changes in time had nothing to do with her. On the other hand, Jiang Ci's body was suffused with wisps of murderous red light. It was frightening to look at. Jiang Ci, the murderous aura on your body is getting heavier and heavier. This can't go on. It will affect your state of mind, Li Baibai said with a frown. I've been using the murderous aura to temper my will. I can't stay unaffected, Jiang Ci said. Shen Tian and Li Baibai also knew that he was cultivating in the land of the fallen gods. You haven't stopped cultivating the peacock visualization, have you? Shen Tian asked. Not yet. I'm cultivating it at the same time as my cultivation, Jiang Ci said with a smile. That's good. With the peacock visualization's self-visualization image, it won't be a big problem. Shen Tian nodded. Big brother, is the peacock visualization that powerful? Li Baibai was confused. When they first obtained the peacock visualization on Earth, the three of them had already cultivated it. It's very powerful. I've been studying the history and literature of Buddhism on Earth. Then, I collected information about the Tao Alliance. In the end, I came to the conclusion that the peacock visualization is very likely an important inheritance of the Tao Alliance, Shen Tian said mysteriously. Jiang Ci and Li Baibai looked at each other, speechless. Big brother, there's no need to study it. We all know that it's an important inheritance of Buddhism. Shen Tian laughed. I haven't finished yet. Buddhism focuses on cultivating the mind. They often talk about subduing the mind and cultivating the mind. For example, compassion and the body-heart are both manifestations of cultivating the mind. As for the peacock visualization, in my opinion, it's an inheritance of cultivating the mind. Cultivating the mind? Jiang Ci was puzzled. That sounded a bit empty. How could one cultivate the mind? In psychology, one's ID, ego, and superego. The mind is a simple thing to talk about, but it's also complicated. For example, the willpower that you've been training for the past few decades is a type of cultivating the mind, Shen Tian said with a smile. Of course, the mind isn't just about willpower. It contains many things, such as emotions, memories, the subconscious mind, and so on. There are many complicated factors, he said a lot. Jiang Ci vaguely understood something, but it also seemed like he didn't understand anything. You just have to remember what I said. When you reach a certain realm, you'll naturally understand. Shen Tian smiled. Then, he said, as for the realm of cultivating the mind, I don't know how Buddhism divides it. After so many years of research, I've concluded that there are 3 realms. Today, I'll tell you about them. 3 realms. Jiang Ci and Li Baibai were both interested. With a division of realms, it was easy to understand. Simply put, false, grand, empty. These 3 words represent the 3 realms of cultivating the mind, Shen Tian said. Jiang Ci and Li Baibai were both speechless. It didn't feel right. Chapter 400. Big brother, fake void refers to lies, big words, and empty words, right? Jiang Ci asked. Shen Tian smiled and shook his head. You have to understand the charm of our great Xia language. Every word, every phrase, every era, every person's heart may have a different answer. The 3 realms of mental cultivation that I mentioned, fake void refers to fake heart, big heart, and empty heart. The so-called fake heart refers to deceiving oneself and others, making oneself and others believe in the truth. If one can deceive all things in the world, it's the great success realm of fake void. And big heart refers to the word big. Big is infinite and encompasses all things. Many of the saints in the ancient history of our great Shia kingdom were in this realm. As for empty heart, since there's nothing in the heart, then naturally, nothing can affect it. Of course, after reaching this realm, perhaps one is no longer human, but a transcendent existence without any emotions. Jiang Xi and Li Bai became more and more serious. At first, they didn't think it was reliable. After all, Shen Tian gave people the impression that he was sometimes like this. But at the end, both of them fell into deep thought. Fake, big, empty. The three realms of mental cultivation were all reasonable. Big brother, what realm are you in now? Li Bai asked curiously. Me. Barely the second realm, big heart. Shen Tian smiled faintly. Big brother, you're not deceiving yourself, are you? The fake heart realm means deceiving yourself, Jiang Xi joked. Do I need to? Shen Tian smiled faintly. In the next moment, Jiang Xi and Li Bai were stunned. Because they realized that behind Shen Tian's head, there was a faint golden halo. It was very similar to the Buddhas in the Buddhist legends. Unfathomable. As expected of Big Brother. Amazing. Jiang Xi and Li Bai praised Shen Tian. What a monster. In the huge valley in the land of the fallen gods. Jiang Xi opened his eyes and ended the transmission. The discussion of heart cultivation with Shen Tian and Li Bai earlier had allowed him to benefit greatly, and he sighed with emotion as expected of Big Brother. Before his rise, Shen Tian had always been the #1 expert on Earth and had influenced several generations. This was enough to prove Shen Tian's talent. In other words, if he didn't have the experience panel, then Shen Tian would be the real #1 genius on Earth. Now, Jiang Xi had seen Shen Tian's talent. The second stage of heart cultivation was comparable to those saints in the ancient history of the great Shia kingdom. Based on the current situation, those saints who left their names in history are definitely not as simple as what is written in the books. Jiang Xi shook his head gently. Speaking of which, I should be at the first level of mental cultivation, false heart. For example, when I train my willpower, I tell myself every time I reach my limit. To be able to continue, to be able to hold on, this is actually an act of lying to oneself. Of course, the deception must be successful to make one's body and willpower believe it. Otherwise, it can't be called false heart. Otherwise, all liars could be said to be at the first level of mental cultivation. Jiang Xi pondered for a moment, and his eyes flashed. Holding the communication bead in his hand, he secretly connected to the Eye of Heaven network. He said in his heart, search keywords, heart cultivation plus Buddhism. Suddenly, a large amount of information appeared. Arhat heart, Bodhisattva heart, Buddha heart. Jiang Xi used his nascent soul spiritual sense to quickly organize the information. In the end, he found that there were only introductions to various states of mind and related theoretical information. There was no specific method of heart cultivation, and there was no mention of the existence of heart cultivation. River Word could vaguely sense that even in the Tao Alliance, the cultivation of the heart was considered a secret. Then, he entered the Eye of Heaven Purple Heaven sect's internal network and searched for heart cultivation. With the authority of a third heaven disciple, he found a lot of good things. Especially an interesting existence. Sky River. No wonder it's called the Sky River painting. It turned out that in the Sky River painting, there was not only the Sky River but also the Sky River. The Sky River painting tested the cultivation of Tao techniques. The Sky River tested the strength of one's will, consciousness, and spiritual sense. After learning about heart cultivation from Shen Tian, Jiang Xi understood that the Sky River actually tested the cultivation of one's state of mind. It was different from the various checkpoints of the Sky River. The Sky River used 21 islands from the downstream to the upstream to distinguish the level of one's state of mind cultivation. The further upstream one went, the more difficult the illusory realm test on the island was. I didn't expect that the Purple Heaven sect would be the most detailed in the division of heart cultivation. Jiang Xi laughed. Xian Tian concluded that there were only 3 levels of heart cultivation: false great emptiness. The Purple Heaven sect was more detailed. Let's take a look. Then, Jiang Xi held the communication bead in his hand, and with a thought, a wisp of spiritual sense entered the Sky River painting. He said in his heart, "Sky River." The next moment, space changed, and he arrived in front of a magnificent Sky River. The reason why it was called Sky River was because the river was actually in the starry sky without anything supporting it. The torrential river water seemed to be about to break through the firmament. One could see that there were islands on the river, arranged from the downstream to the upstream. The first island. Jiang Xi's figure appeared on the first island. Instantly, a will pressure descended. At the same time, an illusory realm appeared with a thin veil that bewitched one's heart. Too weak. Jiang Xi shook his head. This will pressure did not even reach 1/10,000th of the valley in the land of the fallen gods. He broke through the illusory realm directly. With a turn, he entered the second island. Too weak. Too weak. Too weak. Jiang Xi cleared 6 islands in a row with ease. Those illusory realms and will pressure posed no pressure to him at all. On the 21st island in the upper reaches of the Sky River, a green-robed old man suddenly opened his eyes in surprise. A nascent soul lad actually cleared 6 islands in a row. Moreover, even some Dao integration cultivators can't pass the 6th island's illusory realm test. He actually cleared it so easily. At that moment, he saw Jiang Xi enter the 7th island. Most of the Dao integration stage cultivators stop at the 7th island. I wonder if this little guy. Before he finished his thought, Jiang Xi broke through the illusory realm in less than 3 seconds. He's still so relaxed. The green-robed old man was even more shocked now. With a thought, he found Jiang Xi's information. Jiang Xi, Purple Firmament Sect's 3rd heaven disciple. His master is the Liquor Sword Immortal. So he's this lad's disciple. Although the Liquor Sword Immortal's sword Dao is strong and surpasses most Dao immortals and perfected lords, the cultivation of one's mental state is the most difficult to teach. Most of the time, it depends on the cultivator. This lad is only at the perfected nascent soul realm, but he already has such a strong mental state cultivation. It's really rare. If he can clear the 9th island, that would be terrifying. Although Dao technique cultivation was difficult, there were traces to be followed. Mental state cultivation was illusory. It was even harder to improve than Dao technique cultivation. Chapter 401. In just a short moment, the green-robed old man was shocked once more when he saw Riverward fly out from the 8th island. He passed the 8th island too. Terrifying, terrifying. Jiang Xi's spiritual sense was only at the perfected nascent soul stage. Compared to those Dao integration cultivators, he was much weaker. He would be at a disadvantage if he tried to pass the 7th island and beyond. However, it was obvious that Jiang Xi's willpower was too strong. He made up for this shortcoming, which was why he could reach this step. The green-robed elder was in charge of guarding the heavenly stream. He was naturally very powerful, but he could not help but feel nervous. The 9th island. This is the limit of a Dao integration cultivator. If he can pass it, the success rate of his immortal ascension tribulation will be almost 100%. He's only at the nascent soul stage. It's impossible, impossible. He actually passed. Jiang Xi went upstream and arrived at the 9th island. Boom. A powerful willpower descended instantly. His spiritual sense and consciousness almost collapsed under this kind of pressure. Hang in there, hang in there. He felt a stronger willpower here than in the depths of the valley in the land of the fallen gods. An illusion appeared at the same time. Don't take my steamed bun, give it back to me. That's for my brother. A cry sounded in his ears. Damn girl, get out of here. Hit her, hit her. A group of homeless children in ragged clothes snatched half of a cold, hard bun from the hands of a skinny homeless child with punches and kicks. Jiang Xi's emotions did not waver as he watched this scene. The image in his mind was still tenaciously emitting wisps of golden spiritual sense. Is this the extent of the illusion? Go away. Jiang Xi shouted coldly. He passed the 9th island. Very few people knew what Jiang Xi and Jiang Dudu had experienced when they were young. Wandering, setting up a stall, going to school, cultivating martial arts, he was the one who had truly climbed up from the bottom of society. These experiences had given him a tenacious heart. Jiang Xi flew toward the 10th island expressionlessly. The green-robed elder could no longer sit still. His face was full of shock. Frightening willpower, frightening young man. I remember that the young genius of the same batch as him, Ji Wei, who was thought highly of by many Dao immortals and perfected lords, couldn't even pass the 7th island. Mu Ning, who claimed to have a pure and innocent heart, only made it to the 5th tower. With his willpower and mental state, he has a higher chance of becoming an expert of the immortal path than Ji Wei and Mu Ning. Cultivating, comprehending the Dao, fighting, facing a hopeless situation, and so on. If one had an extremely strong will and mental state cultivation, they would have a great advantage. Especially when faced with a hopeless situation, those with a stronger will would find it easier to find a way out of the hopeless situation, and their chances of survival would be higher. We must inform the higher-ups about this. The 3 gates and 6 sects of the Dao Alliance placed the greatest emphasis on the cultivation of geniuses. This could be seen from the fact that the 9 regions genius tournament was held at irregular intervals. The 3 gates and 6 sects would select a group of geniuses with the strongest talent for cultivation from the human race in the universe. However, geniuses of the Dao could be selected through such a method. Cultivating the heart was an illusory thing. Such geniuses could only be discovered by chance and were very difficult to find. Geniuses with high mental state talent were equally important. On the 10th island, Jiang Xi's feet had just touched the ground. Boom! An aura that far exceeded his limits suddenly came crashing down. It was as if the entire world was about to press down on him. His consciousness directly collapsed. He had failed. This was something that could not be helped. No matter how strong one's willpower was, there was still a limit. Under normal circumstances, the illusory realm trial of the 10th island could only be passed by an expert of the immortal path. When the green-robed elder saw this scene, he actually heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that he would be frightened again. If this little guy doesn't die, his future will be limitless. He sighed. We have to inform Yi Liang and the Wine Sword Immortal of this news. Immortal Yi Liang was a subordinate of True Lord Iron Mountain. According to the rules, when Jiang Xi transcended the tribulation and became an immortal, he would also be a subordinate of True Lord Iron Mountain. The Wine Sword Immortal was Jiang Xi's master, so it was even more necessary to inform him. Jiang Xi's shocking actions on the Heavenspan River were only known by a few immortal path experts of the Purple Heaven sect. Even so, it still caused a small stir among the immortal path experts. However, this did not have much to do with Jiang Xi. After he traversed the Heavenspan River, his consciousness left the Heavenspan Mountain River painting. In the huge valley at the core of the fallen god's land. In the stone cave 400,000 meters away. Jiang Xi slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was resolute, pure, and unshakable. The strength of my consciousness and spiritual sense has weakened. Otherwise, I would have been able to pass the 10th island. He shook his head. His clone was still refining his consciousness. Only by completing this process could he condense a primordial spirit and reach the primordial spirit stage. After becoming a primordial spirit cultivator, his consciousness and spiritual sense would definitely be strengthened. It's been more than 100 years. It should be soon. Jiang Xi was very patient. In fact, to him, there was not much difference whether he reached the primordial spirit stage or not. He could easily kill a 3-striped primordial spirit even if it was a primordial spirit. The only thing he lacked now was longevity and the strength of his consciousness. His Dao arts and body realm had long surpassed most primordial spirit cultivators. There's not much Dao arts left in the 5th golden finger. I'll refine them first. Jiang Xi looked at the finger in front of him. It was almost impossible to see the golden color. Only a little golden light flickered. 3 days later, the finger turned black. He checked the changes in his experience points balance. Experience points, 276. 67,251. 4 million. After I absorbed and refined the metal-type Tao arts in the 5 golden fingers, I obtained a total of 500 billion experience points. However, nearly half of them were used to deduce Tao arts. After spending so much experience points, there were naturally gains. First of all, he had deduced the Green Lotus Sword Tao from the 32nd transformation 50 years ago to the 87th transformation. There were 9 transformations of the Green Lotus, and each Green Lotus represented a transformation. The first 3 transformations were 1 lotus, 4 lotuses, and 100 lotuses. There were a total of 105 transformations. He had a premonition that if he could deduce the 105th transformation, his Sword Tao would advance to the level of Sword Intent. Sword Intent was equivalent to the level of a special Great Tao. Secondly, the Gale Tao and the Ignis Tao did not fall behind. They were also deduced. These 2 rare Tao arts were very close to the next realm. Finally, the Vajra Tao art. This development made Jiang Ci frown. He did not expect it. He had not broken through yet. Is it really as Master said? The more paths I take at the same time, the greater the mutual influence between the Tao arts, and the more difficult it will be in the future. The Vajra Tao art was also a rare Tao art. However, the difficulty of deduction could not be described as 10 times greater than that of the Gale Tao and the Ignis Tao. It was more than 100 times. I want to learn a 5th Tao art in the future. Jiang Ci felt the pressure. Moreover, he also realized that ever since he comprehended the Vajra Tao art, the difficulty of deduction for the Sword Tao, the Gale Tao, and the Ignis Tao had increased correspondingly. Otherwise, after consuming so much experience points, he would have broken through long ago. Chapter 402. Jiang Ci shook his head. Gains and losses go hand in hand. It was not a big deal to increase the difficulty of deducing Tao techniques. It was as though he was laying a foundation. The stronger the foundation, the higher the house could be built in the future. He looked at the changes in the Tao pattern technique again. Tao pattern technique, 3 patterns, 2. 1 billion, 3 billion. This is the 8th Tao pattern blood crystal that I refined 10 years ago. I wonder if I can refine the 9th one now. He took out a blood-red crystal the size of a fingernail and refined it. Suddenly, a strong chaotic will appeared in his mind and attacked his consciousness. Kill, 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 roar. A moment later, River Word panted heavily. The image of viewing self in his mind constantly emitted golden spiritual sense light, calming his chaotic consciousness. Success. I feel like I still have energy left. Let's try the 10th one. He took out another Tao pattern blood crystal and tried to refine it. Unfortunately, he only lasted for 10 seconds before failing. My will is still not enough. Jiang Ci was helpless. In fact, with his current state of mind, which was comparable to a perfected Tao integration realm cultivator, he could have become a 4-striped Dozong long ago. After all, a 4-striped Dozong was a Tao integration realm cultivator. He had a detailed understanding. Under normal circumstances, a 3-striped Dozong would only need to refine 3 Tao pattern blood crystals to break through to the 4-striped Dozong realm. It's still related to the Tao pattern technique. The Tao pattern technique that I cultivate can refine multiple Tao techniques into Tao patterns at the same time. As for ordinary Tao pattern arts, they can only refine 1 Tao art. This was the reason. Although my body's strength has increased a lot, but Jiang Ci felt the realm of his body again. He was not sure if his body's strength could reach the level of a supreme-grade spirit weapon after reaching the limit of 3-striped. No matter what, I'll raise it to the limit of 3-striped first. The concentration of evil aura here has weakened the effect of tempering my will. I have to go deeper. Jiang Ci frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. He decided to cultivate in the sea of evil aura. From the looks of it, the best place to temper his will in the valley was the sea of evil aura below. After joining the Golden Vein Shrine's Lord Kos, there has been no movement in the past 50 years. Even that Tur has not contacted me. The possibility of danger is very small. After making up his mind, he flew down and re-entered the area 500,000 meters below the valley. This time, the pressure on him was much less. Unlike the last time, when his consciousness was a little blurry. But now, he was able to maintain more clarity of mind. When he arrived at a position 30,000 meters above the blood sea, Ter's holy sense voice rang in his ears. Jiang Ci, why did you come down? Are you looking for Sir Kos? Jiang Ci stopped and replied respectfully, Captain, the baleful aura above is no longer of much use to me. I'm going to enter the blood sea to cultivate. The baleful aura in that position is not enough. Good, very good. Ter sounded very surprised. He then added, go and cultivate. Remember, don't go below 50,000 meters into the blood sea. The baleful aura there is so dense that even Lord Kos doesn't dare to go too deep. Thank you for your reminder, Captain. Jiang Ci secretly heaved a sigh of relief and continued flying down. 30,000 meters above the blood sea, there was still a hint of surprise on Ter's face. His willpower is actually so strong. He's only a 3-striped doling spirit. The baleful aura and chaotic willpower within 400,000 meters of the valley have no effect on him. This situation needs to be reported to Sir. He's worth focusing on nurturing. After 50 years of observation, he realized that Jiang Ci was indeed wholeheartedly cultivating and did not do anything else. He had always been in one place without moving. Gradually, his suspicion of Jiang Ci also decreased by a lot. On the other side, after Jiang Ci saw the blood sea, he did not deliberately approach Kos Palace. He randomly found a spot and sank into the blood sea. As soon as he came into contact with the surface of the sea, Jiang Ci's expression changed. At this moment, he felt an even more violent chaotic willpower. His consciousness suffered an unprecedentedly strong impact. The chaotic willpower here is already 10 times that of the stone cave. Fortunately, I've been cultivating above for 60 years and my willpower has strengthened a lot. If I had entered the blood sea from the beginning, with the strength of my consciousness at that time, I'm afraid that I would have collapsed directly. Jiang Ci secretly rejoiced. Then, he turned his gaze to the depths of the blood sea. According to the terrain of the valley, this blood sea should be 500,000 meters deep. Let's see how deep I can go. He was not worried about exposing his mental state cultivation. This was because after his body completely sank into the blood sea, Jiang Ci realized that his spiritual consciousness was almost completely suppressed. He could only spread it out to a range of 10 meters. In this valley, the person with the highest cultivation was a 4-striped doling zone. Even if the range of his spiritual consciousness was 1,000 times larger than his, it would only be 10,000 meters. Moreover, it was impossible for the gap to be so big. Therefore, the deeper he went into the blood sea, the lower the possibility of being detected by others. Using the chaotic willpower in the stone cave as a standard. After diving 1,000 meters, the strength of the chaotic willpower doubled again, becoming 11 times. After diving 2,000 meters, the strength of the chaotic willpower was 12 times. After diving 10,000 meters, the strength of the chaotic willpower was 20 times. Here, Jiang Ci finally found the feeling he had when he first came to the valley. I can still continue. 20,000 meters, 30,000 meters. At this point, he finally came to a stop. 30 times the strength of the chaotic willpower. I can't go any deeper. I have to maintain a clear mind. Jiang Ci's eyes pulsed with a baleful aura. After all, he was very close to Kos's palace. If something unexpected happened, he would be able to react in time. As expected, the baleful aura here is even more effective in tempering my willpower. Next, Jiang Ci entered a state of cultivation again. As the strength of his consciousness continued to increase, so did his willpower. Time flowed by. Another 20 years passed. Ancient Tao Origin Realm, 9 Heavens City, Wine Sword Immortal's Palace. On this day, Immortal Iliang, who was dressed in a green robe and had disheveled hair, arrived at Wine Sword Immortal's place. Iliang, you're such a busy man. It's rare for you to come here twice in 100 years, Wine Sword Immortal joked with a smile. I'm not here for you. True monarch Iron Mountain sent me to ask about your disciple, Immortal Iliang said solemnly. Jiang Ci? What happened to him? The unrestrained wine sword Immortal's expression also became serious. He was very concerned about Jiang Ci. Something that true monarch Iron Mountain was personally asking about was naturally not simple. As you know, this disciple of yours passed the 6th stage of the sky-piercing mountain 70 years ago and caught up to Ji Wei, the most talented disciple of this generation. He was noticed by many higher-ups of the sect, Immortal Iliang said. Of course I know that. Although Ji Wei is very talented, he chose the wrong path. It's normal for my disciple, Jiang Ci, to catch up to him. Wine Sword Immortal wasn't surprised at all. In the past few years, Jiang Ci had often come to visit him and ask him some questions about cultivation. Therefore, he was very clear about Jiang Ci's rate of improvement. Chapter 403. Immortal Yi Liang continued, most importantly, 20 years ago, your disciple did something big again. He actually passed the 9th island of the Heavenspan River. This is something that most peak Dao integration cultivators can't do. After that, many Dao immortals and perfected monarchs in the sect placed bets on him. Wine Sword Immortal nodded. This was how geniuses were. The better they performed, the more people paid attention to them. Wine Sword Immortal frowned and asked, I know all that. What's the situation now? Immortal Yi Liang sighed. It's about the cultivation missions. True monarch Iron Mountain is very concerned about this batch of genius disciples. Especially Ji Wei, Jiang Ci, and Mu Ning. After leaving the ancient Dao source world, these geniuses focused on cultivation. Even if they took on missions, they wouldn't spend too much time. Jiang Ci only took on a single mission to the Battle Pattern continent, and he spent more than 80 years there. With his strength, even if it was a dangerous mission, there should have been a result regardless of whether he succeeded or failed. True monarch Iron Mountain was afraid that he would go astray and become too obsessed with cultivation missions. So he sent me to ask about your disciple's current situation. I also asked the people from the 6 Sage Palace. They said that Jiang Ci has been cultivating in the land of the fallen gods for the past 80 years. You also know that many powerful cultivators of our Purple Heaven sect died there in order to conquer the Battle Pattern continent. There are many secrets in that place. True monarch Iron Mountain is worried that he might encounter some danger there. Is he trapped there? Immortal Yi Liang added. After hearing Immortal Yi Liang's question, Wine Sword Immortal smiled and slowly took a sip of wine from his gourd. Hurry up and tell me. Immortal Yi Liang was anxious. Haha. Wine Sword Immortal laughed and said, you should know that Jiang Ci cultivates 3 Daos. I won't say anything else. Let's talk about the Sword Dao. He has already comprehended the first 104 transformations of the Green Lotus Sword Dao, 104 transformations. So fast. Immortal Yi Liang was shocked. He also knew the 9 transformations of the Green Lotus Sword Dao. The first 3 transformations had a total of 105 transformations. Didn't that mean that Jiang Ci had already comprehended the first 3 transformations? Such a level of attainment in the Dao already surpassed that of many tribulation transcenders. More importantly, it had only been 80 years. In comparison, Jiang Ci's cultivation speed was even faster than when he was in the ancient Dao origin world. Moreover, this did not take into account the interaction between the various Daoist techniques. At the same time, the more paths one took, the harder it would be to continue walking. I remember that he had mastered the first 2 evolutions of the Green Lotus Sword Dao when he left the ancient Dao origin world. Including the 3rd evolutionary process that I've just comprehended, there are only 20 transformations in total. Now, there are actually 104 transformations. In other words, in the original universe, he comprehended at least 1 transformation in a year. Immortal Yi Liang was puzzled. His cultivation speed has increased after he left the ancient Dao origin world. And this was only Jiang Ci's Sword Dao cultivation. What about the rest? The Wine Sword Immortal's mood had completely relaxed. He was lying on his side on the chair with his clothes open. His voice sounded leisurely. It's very simple. He usually has my guidance. In addition, I gave him the lotus sword cannon that Lian Rong left behind. He used it to comprehend the sword Dao, so his cultivation speed is naturally not slow. In addition, he refined the Dao pattern blood crystal, so his affinity with the Dao of heaven and earth has increased a lot. It's normal for his cultivation speed to be faster. Of course, most importantly, this disciple of mine is a genius to begin with. The wine sword immortal chuckled proudly as he spoke. Back then, everyone had thought highly of Ji Wei and Mu Ning. Only he thought highly of Jiang Ci. Now, it seemed like his judgment was the best. In the end, immortal Yi Liang left with a satisfied answer. In the depths of the valley in the core region of the fallen god's land, Jiang Ci had been cultivating in the baleful Blood Sea for 20 years now. There were waves on the surface of the Blood Sea. However, it was abnormally calm 50,000 meters above the Blood Sea. Of course, it was only calm on the surface. The chaotic intent here was 50 times stronger. It gave off the feeling of being on an ancient battlefield of gods and demons. The slightest carelessness would cause one's consciousness to be devoured by the boundless baleful Blood Sea, and one would become a true madman after all. Even Lord Kos didn't dare to go too deep into the Blood Sea. This was the result of Jiang Ci's 20 years of cultivation in the Blood Sea. The Blood Sea had increased from 30,000 meters to 50,000 meters at the beginning. When Jiang Ci woke up from his cultivation, he felt that the strength of his consciousness and willpower seemed to have reached a limit. Is this a mental bottleneck? Have I reached greater mastery in the first stage of mental cultivation? Such doubts appeared in his mind. Because all these years of tempering his willpower, he had basically been lying to his willpower and body. Every time he reached his limit and felt that he couldn't hold on any longer, he would tell himself that he could still hold on a little longer. Just like that, he had persisted until now. Using his spiritual sense, he could see that the image in his mind was emitting golden spiritual sense light all over, not just wisps like before. The 3 stages of mental cultivation are false, grand, and void. According to Big Brother, after the image is covered with golden spiritual sense light, I'll reach greater mastery of the false stage. Looks like it's true. Then let's stop here. Jiang Ci decided to end his cultivation. The bottleneck from false to grand was no longer something that could be broken through purely by tempering his willpower. He looked at the changes on the experience panel. Dao pattern art, 3 patterns, 2, 7 billion 3 billion, it just so happens that the Dao pattern art is reaching its limit. I only need to refine the 12th Dao pattern blood crystal. Jiang Ci flipped his hand and took out a Dao pattern blood crystal and began to refine it. Soon, a chaotic willpower that was 1,000 times stronger than the first Dao pattern blood crystal appeared. But this time, the image in his mind that was covered in golden light directly suppressed the chaotic willpower. This is the power of the first stage of mental cultivation. Jiang Ci was a little surprised. How powerful would the second stage of Grand Heart be? Jiang Ci looked deeper into the Blood Sea. Perhaps he could directly ignore the chaotic willpower here? Because the Grand Heart realm was infinitely big and encompassed all things, it should be easy to encompass these strong chaotic willpower. While my clone is refining the spiritual fruit and improving the Dao pattern art, let's see how deep I can go in the Blood Sea. He began to dive again. 60,000 meters, 70,000 meters. As he dived deeper, he felt even stronger chaotic willpower. However, the golden spiritual sense light of the image in his mind did not show any signs of strengthening. Finally, he arrived at 100,000 meters deep in the Blood Sea. This is the limit. In this place, his consciousness once again began to feel a little fuzzy. I wonder if the experts of the battle pattern continent have gone deep into the Blood Sea? This thought surfaced in Jiang Ci's mind. No matter what, I have to search around here. What if there's something good? Jiang Ci's eyes lit up. Chapter 404. Jiang Ci believed that very few people could reach 100,000 meters into the Sea of Blood. Even Kosi, who was comparable to a tribulation transcender, could only reach 50,000 meters. The 5 Pattern King realm experts of the 5 temples were equivalent to a tribulation transcender. No matter how powerful they were, it would be difficult for them to reach this area. For Jiang the chaotic will here put a lot of pressure on his spiritual sense and consciousness. However, by relying on self-observation, he could ensure that his consciousness was clear and that he wouldn't go crazy. After that, Jiang began searching in the area between 50,000 and 100,000 meters deep in the Sea of Blood. Anyway, he had nothing to do. It would take his clone 10 days to half a month to refine the spiritual fruit and improve its Tao pattern technique. However, after searching in this area for 7 days, Jiang was speechless. He didn't find anything, not even a strand of hair. Moreover, in this area, the range of his spiritual sense was only a few meters. He was basically searching with his eyes. Let's search along the mountain wall at the bottom of the valley. Jiang treated this as a tourist adventure. The valley was surrounded by mountains over 1,000,000 meters tall. After another 5 days, he swam to a mountain wall at the bottom of the Sea of Blood. In the distance, Jiang actually saw a wisp of flickering light. In the depths of the Sea of Blood, there was no light, only endless darkness. Therefore, that wisp of light was particularly eye-catching. Is there a treasure? Jiang immediately became spirited and swam over. As he got closer, the wisp of light became brighter. After getting closer, Jiang vaguely discovered that it was actually a cave. The light came from the cave. Let's go and take a look. River Word was puzzled. Soon, he arrived in front of the cave. After seeing the situation in front of him clearly, he was stunned. This is... Inside the cave, there was only a fog-like blood-red killing intent rolling violently. This was a common scene in the land of the fallen gods. At the entrance of the cave on the mountain wall at the bottom of the Sea of Blood, there seemed to be a layer of invisible barrier that blocked the liquid killing intent outside the cave. The gaseous and liquid state were clearly separated. Occasionally, the invisible barrier would flicker with rays of light. Only then did Jiang realize that the source of the light was this invisible barrier. Strange. According to the reminder when I accepted the mission, no formations are allowed on the Do Tattoo continent. This move should be to guard against the cultivators of the Do Tattoo continent and prevent experts of the Tao of formations from appearing. Then who set up the spirit formation here? Or was it formed naturally? Jiang was puzzled. A long time ago, he had seen a similar array formation at the entrance of the first and second abodes in the Jade Lake secret realm on Earth. After pondering for a moment, he still couldn't come up with an answer. Jiang shook his head and made a mental note of this matter. When the mission was over, he would remind the people in the sect. Then, he passed through the invisible barrier and entered the cave. In an instant, the chaotic will that filled his mind disappeared without a trace. It was as if a thick layer of shackles had been removed from his body. It was very easy. The mist-like baleful chi in the cave contained chaotic wills. At this moment, the sounds of killing and roaring sounded like a pleasant song to his ears. My spiritual sense is also no longer suppressed by the Sea of Blood. It has returned to normal. Jiang was overjoyed. He spread out his spiritual consciousness and quickly explored the entire cave. So it's just a cave tunnel that runs through this 1,000,000-meter-tall mountain. Jiang was a little disappointed. Judging from the shape of the cave, it seemed to have been blasted out by an extremely condensed attack. There was nothing inside the cave. One end was the edge of the Sea of Blood, and the other end was the outer wall of the mountain. If he went out from the other end, he would be outside the valley. The key was that he could go out from the top of the valley, so the use of this cave was very small. Jiang was not worried about leaving. Although Terrace said that he could not leave the valley without Lord Kos's orders, he was not sincere. However, he wasn't sincere in joining them, nor was he a native cultivator of the Do Tattoo continent. If he wanted to leave, he just needed to find an opportunity to fly out of the valley and escape with a flying boat. With the speed of a top-quality flying boat, even if Kos was comparable to a tribulation transcender, he would not be able to catch up with him. A failed treasure hunting expedition. Jiang shook his head and lost interest in continuing to explore. He passed through the invisible barrier and re-entered the sea of blood. Then, he returned to the position 50,000 meters above the sea of blood. He was waiting for his clone to complete the upgrade to the third pattern of the Dao pattern technique. Since he had a clone, regardless of whether his main body had the time or not, he would leave the process of refining spiritual fruits to his clone. This was the most prudent move. His clone was on the first moon of Earth, and basically no one could find it. In this way, no one would find out that he often refined a large number of spiritual fruits. In this way, he waited quietly for 2 more days. Jiang Xi's eyes suddenly focused, and his expression became solemn. The limit of 3 patterns. At this moment, although the 4th pattern did not appear on his body, it began to change from a deep level. His body, which was already far stronger than a high-grade spirit artifact, increased in strength once again. Then, as if he had touched a limit, the limit was quickly broken. The strength of his body also jumped to a new level. A top-quality spirit artifact. Dao pattern technique, 3 billion, 3 billion, 3 billion. Because he had refined 3 Dao patterns at the same time, his body realm had reached the level of a top-quality spirit artifact in advance when he was at the limit of a 3-pattern doling spirit. With such strength, if I don't face an immortal powerhouse, even if I stand there and let the opponent cut me, it will probably take a long time for them to really hurt me, right? Jiang Xi smiled confidently. A top-quality spirit artifact represented the highest level of spirit artifacts. Now, only an immortal artifact could pose a threat to his body. When the golden pattern Do Huang died, he left behind 2 palms, one of which is kept in the golden pattern temple. Ter said that after becoming a 4-pattern doling spirit master, I can apply to Kos for the opportunity to comprehend this emperor-level Dao pattern secret treasure. Jiang Xi's heart was full of expectations. This was one of the reasons why he had stayed in the battle pattern continent for so long. Afterward, he directly left the Sea of Blood and flew toward the Black Palace. 30,000 meters above the Sea of Blood, Ter saw this scene and his eyes moved. This Jiang Xi was able to cultivate in the Sea of Blood for 20 years. It seems that he is really focused on cultivation. I must have wronged him before. But what is he going to do now? Is he going to meet Lord Kos? After the last message to Lord thinks highly of him. He should be nurturing him vigorously in the future. But Lord has been cultivating in seclusion. If he has nothing important to do, I'm afraid he will be scolded. It's good to let him suffer a little this time. Ter was not the only one. Some other black-robed priests saw Jiang Xi's figure and gently shook their heads. Chapter 405. Kosi had been cultivating in seclusion on the 2nd floor of the palace. If there wasn't anything important, the black-robed priests wouldn't dare to disturb him. Jiang Xi naturally had nothing to fear. He stood at the entrance of the 2nd floor and said respectfully, Jiang Xi greets Lord Kosi. Come in. Kosi's voice sounded. Kosi came to the 2nd floor of the main hall and sat on the throne above the hall. Greetings, Lord. Jiang Xi still bowed respectfully. What's the matter? Kosi's deep voice sounded. Obviously, he was a little displeased with Jiang Xi's sudden greeting. It was as if he was sleeping soundly and was suddenly woken up by someone. Lord, I heard from Captain Terrace that the Emperor-level Dao pattern secret treasure left behind by the Golden Pattern Do Emperor is kept in the Golden Pattern Temple. After we become 4-striped Do Zongs, we can apply to Lord for the opportunity to study this Emperor-level Dao pattern secret treasure. Yes, there is such a thing. You can study it for 100 years. I have already become a 4-striped Do Zong, so I specially came to apply. Jiang Xi said, and at the same time, he spread out his aura. 4-striped Do Zong? Kosi was very surprised, and his voice rose a little. He scanned Jiang Xi with his spiritual sense and confirmed this fact. It was indeed the aura of a top-grade spirit weapon. Haha, Jiang Xi, you did well. I am very satisfied. Kosi laughed. There was no lack of struggle in any era, and the Do Pattern continent was no exception. Although Kosi's position in the Golden Pattern Temple was comparable to a 5-striped Do King, his foundation was not as deep as those true 5-striped Do Kings. That was why he recruited so many subordinates and nurtured them. However, geniuses were hard to find. After so many years, he had only nurtured 3 4-striped dozongs. In Kose's eyes, Jiang Ci was able to easily kill his top blood slave at the 3-striped do spirit stage. This was already proof of his superb fighting talent. 20 years ago, Te reported to him about Jiang Ci's talent in willpower. And now, Jiang Ci had proven his cultivation talent again. Your talent is the best among all the geniuses in the 5 temples. Don't worry, I will ask the Golden Pattern Divine Palace for that monarch-grade Dao Pattern secret treasure. I'll give you 100 years. No, 200 years. Kos waved his hand. He felt that he had picked up a treasure. Thank you, sir. Jiang Ci hurriedly expressed his gratitude. It will take about 2 months to get here from the Golden Pattern Temple. You can leave first. When the temple sends someone to deliver the Dao Pattern Cardinal treasure, I will inform you. Kose laughed. The scene of Jiang Ci leaving the palace was captured by Te and some other black-robed priests. They were puzzled when they saw the smile on Jiang Ci's face. From the looks of it, Jiang Ci wasn't scolded by Sir Kos, but was praised instead. Jiang Ci did not care about everyone's gazes, nor did he show off the improvement of his body's realm. He returned to the Blood Sea to cultivate. 2 months. Meanwhile, in the northern part of the Do Tattoo continent, there was a vast mountain range that stretched for millions of kilometers. There were many majestic and enormous temples. This was the headquarters of the Golden Pattern Temple. Among the 5 great temples, only the Golden Pattern Temple was the closest to the fallen godland. It was about 1 trillion kilometers away. The palace in the deepest part of the vast mountain range was also the most heavily guarded place. A black-robed priest who looked like a young man quickly arrived at the palace. Doke greets His Majesty Liu Wang. Although the young man's aura was that of a powerful 4-striped dozong, he still knelt on the ground respectfully. Give the Emperor-level Dao Pattern Cardinal treasure left behind by the Golden Pattern Do Huang to Kose of the Fallen Godland. A loud voice echoed throughout the hall. Yes, sir. Doke hurriedly stretched out his hands with a devout expression. In the next moment, a golden palm appeared in his hands. He was not surprised by such a mission because Kose's position in the Golden Pattern Temple was not inferior to the Do Wang's. Doke quickly left the palace and shouted to the black-armored guards beside him, 7th Divine Guard, quickly assemble and follow me to the fallen godland. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A team of black-armored divine guards made up of 3-striped Do spirits arrived in front of Doke. Doke took out a flying spiritual tool with golden patterns. It was shaped like a flying boat. The golden flying boat quickly enlarged. Everyone boarded the boat and it turned into a ray of light that flew toward the fallen godland. As they could not enter the starry sky, his flying boat could only fly at sublight speed. The Golden Pattern Temple was 1 trillion kilometers away from the fallen godland. With the speed of the golden flying boat, it would take 2 months. Soon, after flying for 50 days, the golden flying boat was very close to the fallen godland. Half of the fallen godland was at the northern edge of the Do Pattern continent. The other half was made up of many fragments in the void. The valley in the core area was not the only place with a high concentration of evil aura. There were also lakes formed by various kinds of evil aura in other places. On a fragment near the northern edge of the Do Pattern continent, there was such an evil aura lake. If Jiang Ci was here, he would know that he had thought of cultivating in this lake. However, this place was already occupied by someone who was very strong. In the end, he gave up on this place. In the blood-colored evil aura lake, there was also a palace. On this day, a white-robed priest rushed out of the lake and flew toward the palace. My lord. Lord Bai Cheng. Whoosh. Suddenly, a huge palm slapped him to the ground. What are you shouting for? A light snort sounded, full of displeasure. The white-robed priest did not care if he had offended the powerful Lord Bai Cheng. He quickly said with an excited expression, My lord, I saw a 5-colored light at the bottom of the lake just now. It seems to be an Emperor-grade Dao Pattern Cardinal treasure. However, I am not strong enough to go deep into the lake, so I came to report. What? A handsome youth appeared with a shocked expression. This was because he had already searched the lake many times, and there was nothing valuable in it. But now, the white-robed priest under him saw the five-colored light. Could it really be an Emperor-grade Dao pattern cardinal treasure? Quick, bring me there. He was also excited. An Emperor-grade Dao pattern cardinal treasure could only be found by chance. If one was not fated, even if it was placed in front of one would not be able to see it. One could only see it if they were in physical contact. Soon, Bai Cheng followed the white-robed priest into the evil aura lake. This evil aura lake was only 10,000 meters deep. With the white-robed priest's strength as a three-striped doling, he was indeed unable to reach the deepest part. My lord, it is over there. The five-colored light is still flashing. Bai Cheng relied on his strength as a four-striped dozong and quickly dived to the bottom of the lake according to the white-robed priest's direction. Nothing. Bai Cheng frowned. In his vision, there was only liquid evil aura. There was nothing else. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.